28 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
As a reminder, please like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, which helps more people find the show.
And share it with any cinephiles in your life.
On this episode, we have reviews of two new releases for you, one that will make you listen closely and one that will make you close your eyes.
Yes, today we will be discussing the crime thriller Tuner from director Daniel Roher, which features Leo Woodall as a piano tuner with a particular set of skills. Then we'll try to navigate our way through Backrooms, the adaptation of the YouTube horror sensation from first-time director Kane Parsons.
A feast for the eyes and ears this week at the movies. But before we dig into these films, let's play some catch-up. So the Cannes Film Festival has officially wrapped up. Fjord has won the Palme d'Or, the new film from Christian Mungiu, starring Sebastian Stan and Renata Reinsve. But the big factor of this is that Neon has officially won this award 7 times in a row. I had a bold prediction going into the Cannes Film Festival that they were going to lose the Palme. But then as the festival was going, I'm like, okay, I have a hunch that a Neon film was going to acquire this award. And lo and behold, it happened again. 7-time champion, which is absolutely nuts to me that at this rate, just call it the Palme D Neon. At this rate, like, if Neon doesn't win the award, then what's even the point anymore of having this? So we talked a few weeks ago about some of the Cannes titles that caught our eye since it was early in the festival. And now that it's over, a lot of films have been added to my watch list. I am very excited for a handful of these winners. Fjord is definitely one of my most anticipated. It's not the top anticipated Cannes title for me. I think the big one is probably because of all the acclaim all of a sudden from Hamaguchi, and then The Black Ball, which was a late bloomer into the festival and garnered so much buzz, and Netflix picked it up for distribution, so that could be their big contender later this year. But I'm excited for this. I wonder what this means for the Oscars and everything, because most of the Palme d'Or winners of the last few years that Neon has put out have gotten into Best Picture. Obviously, 2 of them have won Best Picture. I don't buy Fjord being a Best Picture winner, but I could see him making its way into the Oscars and doing pretty well, especially for a lot of the above the line awards and everything. So now that Cannes has wrapped up and now that we know our Palme d'Or winner, how do you feel about all this, and does it make you more excited to check out the film?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just on the star power of Sebastian Stan and Renata Reinsve alone, I was already excited for it. But, yeah, Neon has done it again. And it was a fair prediction from you that, this would be the year that they don't get it, because the streak has to end at some point, but not yet. They still got 7 years strong. So, at this point, and we've talked about this before a little bit. I think that, some people maybe complain that I think last year it was particularly clear the way that they were like acquiring things like crazy. And it's like they're trying to sort of lap up anything that could be the potential Palme winner. But for me, I think generally I have very few complaints with how Neon rolls out its movies. I think that they give they give everything kind of a solid chance at awards, at decent amount of expanding into a large amount of screens. So, I don't really have any complaint with them snapping up all the good movies and then, giving them a decent run. So I hope that Fjord's the same, starring Renata Reinsve and being sort of, I think it's, I think it could be a similar comp to Sentimental Value from last year, with her as the star. I think I get the impression that it's some amount is in English. So, Sentimental Value was a sort of hybrid foreign language and English language movie. And so I don't know, maybe this could have a similar awards trajectory and definitely be a front runner for international feature. Yeah, I don't know about Best Picture overall. It's going to be a bigger year, I think. There's a lot of huge big blockbuster things that are going to also have awards prestige. So, this is a bit of a smaller movie, but there are always smaller movies in the mix. So, yeah, I think this is one that we're going to be hearing about for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and once we really start getting into predicting the Oscars and everything, this is definitely one that's going to come up in conversation a lot, especially in the above the line categories. Like, I could see this getting picture, director, definitely 2 acting noms. I think right now I'm confidently putting both of them in their respective categories, and then I could say screenplay as well. A lot of people have made this compare it to Anatomy of a Fall, which fittingly enough was also a Palme d'Or winner and went on to receive a bunch of Oscar nominations and everything. So I'm really interested to see where this
And win
goes.
screenplay, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I was already excited because of the two of them working together. I obviously love them on their own, but when they work together, it's really really great. I thought Different Man was really great, and one of my favorite elements was the dynamic between the two of them. So I'm very excited to see a very different project with the two of them collaborating with one another. And this is obviously not the first time that we're going to be talking about Renata Reinsfeld today. So all the more reason to bring up this news story for sure. So yeah, very excited about that. Hopefully one day we'll be at Cannes because it seemed like there were a lot of really exciting titles that played there, and yeah, I can't wait to see a handful of these movies.
Yeah, Renata Reinsfeld. I mean, last year was already her year with her first Oscar nom and everything, but she's shaping up to have an even bigger one with this and the combo of, being in something that's going to be probably a big box office hit this week. So, yeah, it's Renata's world. We're just living in it.
Yeah, very exciting time for us Renata Reinsfeld fans who have been there since 2021 when Worst Person in the World came out. So very excited, very excited. What's next on the news catch up?
For our next piece of news, I'm calling it now, making an awards prediction. Future Best Picture winner Paddington 4 is coming. The Veep creator Arnaldo Iannucci is going to write the screenplay, and the Paddington in Peru director Dougal Wilson is in talks to return. I love Paddington. I think that the Paddington in Peru, it was a bit of a letdown after the first two, but the first two are such masterpieces that it was a little hard to live up to that. So yeah, I welcome more Paddington in my life for sure. I think that he's a presence that we all desperately need, and so yes, another movie I am totally on board, even if it's a bit of diminishing returns, because it's we still have the first two to watch, even if this doesn't quite live up to it, and so I think it's just something that's a joy that we can all look forward to. But what about you? Do you think that Paddington should have stopped with the trilogy, or are you excited for this new entry?
So I still haven't even watched Paddington in Peru, admittedly, because I was really bummed that Paul Kane didn't come back to direct it. And I really like the first two Paddington movies a lot. I'm not as OMG about them as everybody else is, but I do really, really like them, especially for family entertainment. Like, there's very few family films that we've gotten over the last decade and a half that have really worked for me. And those two films, especially that second one, is really, really outstanding. And I'm sure Paddington in Peru was a very fun movie. I also was a little annoyed that Sally Hawkins didn't come
Yeah,
back.
I
Like
missed her
that
in
kind
this.
of turned me off from really watching the movie because first of all, Sally Hawkins is a goat. Like you don't just push her out of a project. And like if she is unavailable, then you work around her schedule to get her into the film. But yeah, I mean, I heard it was solid and everything, but obviously we all knew it was never going to match up to those first two and everything. That being said, I am intrigued with this new Paddington. Like, I'll probably catch up with Paddington in Peru at some point before this new one comes out. I've never really cared for Veep, though, so I'm a little hesitant about it, but I know it's a very beloved show by so many. So I think it's interesting that the guy who helmed Veep is going to write a Paddington movie. I think that's very interesting. So, yeah, I'm open minded to it, but admittedly, as someone who hasn't seen the previous Paddington movie, I don't have a ton to say about the story. But for people who love Paddington, there's more coming.
I love Veep, and I think it's a weird mashup for sure. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of similarities there, but just for the very sharp writing and Paddington is for being a children's family movie. I think, like you said, it's a really strong one. It's not something that's just you put on the TV to keep the kids entertained. Like it's something that has a genuine script and story and characters and everything. So I'm excited about that combination. So we shall see.
Are you excited for the next story, though?
Next story, yeah, sure. So, before the release of his newest film, we got information that Nicholas Winding Refn's next film has also been announced. He's doing Maniac Cop at Mubi. This is a revival of a previous film. I don't have that much information about it. I don't think we have any casting news or anything like that. But yeah, I'm pretty much a fan of Nicholas Winding Refn. I'm excited to see his film out later this year. So I'm not familiar with this property, but again, Mubi, like we talked about with Neon, I think that Mubi has been a pretty decent distributor for awards fair and maybe build up their box office rep a little bit. So yeah, this is an interesting combination of projects. So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, this could be a very cool film. I haven't seen everything that Nicholas Winding Refn has made, admittedly. But I love Drive. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of Drive. Only God Forgives is very strange, and I need to give that another watch. And what was the last film that he made? Oh, The Neon Demon. That one was it exists. It's a film that exists
I haven't
and
seen that one.
everything. I'm gonna probably rewatch a few of his movies before. Is it her Private Hell? Is that what
Her
it's
Private
called?
Hell. Yeah.
Yeah, which also premiered at Cannes
Hmm.
a while back and got, as expected, very polarizing responses. But I'm very excited to see it because it has Sophie Thatcher and, funnily enough, one of the actors in one of the movies that we're talking about today, which is crazy. Everything ties back to the movies that
Yeah.
we're reviewing today. But yeah, sure. Like, I'm totally down for a new Nicholas Winding Refn film, and I don't know a ton about Maniac Cop either. But when I saw the title, I'm like, Maniac Cop. That's a very appealing title to me. So yeah, I'm interested in it for sure.
Yeah, we shall see.
And then we had a teaser trailer drop for a new A24 film called Primetime. This stars Robert Pattinson, and it's going to come out in September. The year the Pattinson continues. I mean, he's in a multitude of different projects. This is his second A24 movie of this year after the drama, and this will, by the time this comes out, I think this will be his third project of the year. Yeah, I believe his third project because he had the drama, and then he has the Odyssey in July, and then this, and then obviously Dune at the end of the year. I'm probably missing something. I'm too lazy to look it up right now, but so this is supposedly going to be a movie where it's like he's playing Chris Hansen, and I didn't realize that that was going to be what this movie was. I had read that this was inspired by Chris Hansen and everything, but I thought it was going to be someone who was akin to him, not a
Hmm.
direct. He's directly playing him.
Yeah.
So never in my life, like I've seen episodes of To Catch the Predator and everything, but never in my life did I think that Twilight Boy would go on to play Chris Hansen. But I also never thought he would go on to play Batman. So a multitude of surprises from that man.
He has
But
the
this
range.
yeah, the range, exactly. But this teaser, I'm really hooked. I'm very interested in seeing how this film fares. And yeah, the trailer that we got, I was pretty impressed. And, I don't know what this is going to be in terms of like awards contenders. I'm not sure what A24 is like big awards contender is going to be. I doubt it's going to be this. But I'm willing to be open minded into thinking that, oh, could this finally be the year where Pattinson gets some sort of awards attention for one of his roles? Because he's gone overdue of getting recognized by these major awards bodies and everything. So I'm really excited for this, but also it would be remiss of me as a big fan of Boy Genius and Phoebe Bridgers to not mention that she's in this movie, and this is her first lead-in role in a film, and I'm very excited to see what she does in this film. And Skylar Gazando is also in this, who I didn't even know was in it until the trailer played. So I'm very excited for this. I know that you're usually not someone that jumps on the gun of watching trailers and everything, but is this one that you caught? If not, are you interested in checking out this movie?
Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer, but was already interested in the movie for sure. Very rude of Robert Pattinson to be in a movie this year without Zendaya. Like, what, you couldn't give her a call? She's got time on her hands. She's not also in a million movies this year. So yeah, I think that this could. Yeah, I don't really have much of a. I didn't really watch To Catch a Predator. I don't really have much of a relationship to that property or anything. But I just hope this can function as a hopefully an awards vehicle for Pattinson. I think that his I mean, star has been rising. He's been a star since the Twilight days, but his rep has definitely been rising as a super interesting, cool, serious actor who can who doesn't take himself too seriously, but does really really great work. And so if this is going to be sort of a vehicle for him, then I'm really excited about that. And A24 has been pretty good with pushing their awards. Actors and everything. So yeah, I hope that I'm that's more the angle that I'm more excited for this. But I hope it's a really cool film as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that concludes our recap of the past week. So now it's time to get into our main topic, our reviews of Backrooms and Tuner. We're going to start out with Tuner, give our non spoiler thoughts before transitioning into full spoiler territory. So, Veronica, what were your expectations going into Tuner, and how did you feel about the movie overall?
Yeah, I had pretty high expectations. This had played at festivals and just heard some good buzz about it. I knew that people were pretty excited about it. I was really only familiar with Leo Woodall from his season on The White Lotus, and really liked him in that. And I know he's been popping up in a few other projects here and there, so was excited to see him get a real starring role. And I absolutely loved it. I think that it felt like a throwback to character driven thrillers with a great like hook, a great premise at the center of it. Because we follow a protagonist with a sort of special skill slash disability, and you coming out of that, you get a lot of like competency porn because he's so skilled and gifted with tuning pianos and with music, and we learn more about that as the movie goes on. It's a really interesting New York movie as well, because we have Leo Woodall's character driving around the city and bouncing between the outskirts of the city and seeing the ultra wealthy, and then his life is sort of in the working class world, and then the crime underbelly elements as well. And I think a lot of people are comparing this to different things, sort of like a Michael Mann movie vibe, or Safdie Brothers a little bit. Like that's all definitely there. But the thing that I thought of most was actually Breaking Bad. I think that like in terms of watching a really like capable main character getting wrapped up in the crime world, and sort of a mix of desperation and greed, and also it plays a lot with I always think of Breaking Bad for those like POV shots when you're like watching somebody do some sort of involved process, and you're getting all these weird angles, and like it plays with that a lot as well, and in a way that I think was really effective. It's a really like propulsive, exciting sort of movie, and particularly here the sound design is the star. When I saw this, I got to see it followed by a Q&A with the sound designer, Johnny Burns, who recently won an Oscar for Zone of Interest, which is like one of the coolest wins in recent history, because Oppenheimer was such a juggernaut that year, but the sound design in Zone of Interest is just like, it makes that movie. It completely creates this whole other world. And so, sound is used in this movie to put us in Nikki's perspective a couple of times. We hear super intricate but quiet sound, and then it gets really loud in some moments, like to great effect. So, yeah, I think that this is just like such an exciting movie. I want to see it again, not even because I'm like, oh, I didn't get quite something, or I want to see what else I get out of it. I'm like, I just want to like go on the ride again. I think that it's like a really fun, exciting, but has some depth and heart to it as well.
Yeah, this is one that, like you said, premiered at during the fall festival circuit. I was at TIFF where this movie showed, and I tried so desperately to get a ticket for this. This was the film that was really difficult for me to comp a ticket for. And mind you, I was at the festival the entire time. I had like 7 opportunities to watch this movie, and unfortunately, the few times it conflicted with other movies, and then the times where I was free, I'm like, okay, I have nothing going on this time. I'm going to try to get a ticket for Tuner, and nothing worked in my favor. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just see this when I can. So I first saw this at the Philadelphia Spring Fest back in April, and there was so much hype surrounding this. Like, this was a very beloved film amongst the festival circuit last year, early into this year, and I was like, oh, can this really live up to the hype? And it absolutely lived up to the hype, to say the least. This movie was fantastic. This is one of the most surprising movies that I've seen in quite some time, to where I went in knowing nothing. I didn't know anything about the movie. I didn't watch the trailer. I knew who was in it and who directed it, and that was it. And I was very, very impressed with Daniel Roher's direction. And I thought it was so interesting and very cool for him to follow up his Oscar-winning documentary, Navalny, with a narrative feature. And you wouldn't even put two and two together that's from the same person. Like, the energy here is so strong that you're just on this massive thrill ride from start to finish, and you don't want it to stop. You're so hooked, you're so invested in these characters, you're invested in the journey. Obviously, the themes of music are really cool. The commentary on one's hearing loss is really interesting as well, and it just it doesn't reinvent the heist genre, but there's so much confidence behind the camera that it's really hard to watch this movie and not be immersed with what's happening on screen. Leah Wadall is unbelievable in this. This is a great leading man performance, and one that I hope gains him more opportunities to headline films or even TV shows. Because, like you, the only thing I had seen him in prior was White Lotus, and I liked him on that. So I'm glad to see that he was given a really cool piece of material to work with. And then you have Dustin Hoffman, who is just so much fun in this. He's really really lovely. I have a bobblehead and I forgot to grab it before the recording. If only the force was real, I could just have it slide to my hand right now. I need him to be our special guest, Harry Horowitz, our special guest. But like you said, the true MVP of this film is the absolutely phenomenal sound work. The sound work here is some of the best I've heard in a long time. And when you had told me that it was the same sound designer as Zone of Interest, I'm like, well, that completely makes sense. Like, I mean, what they did with that film was otherworldly, and the same could be said here. So, yeah, this isn't the most unique film that I've seen in a hot minute, but it's such a blast, and it's so beautifully constructed, and I loved it. I really was a big fan of it. I've seen it twice and I'm already excited to watch it again down the road. And this is also one of those films that I feel like I could easily recommend to anybody in my life that isn't really into movies, cuz I went with a few of my friends who aren't as passionate about movies as you and I are, and they loved it. They thought it was so good and so captivating and so engrossing, and it's funny, it's sincere, it's terrifying. It has all these different tones that mesh together very beautifully. And yeah, this was a huge winner for me. Truly, I was very impressed. You brought up the comparisons between like Michael Mann and Safdie's. I like the Breaking Bad comparison that you brought, but this made me think a lot of like Whiplash meets Sound of Metal. Like I got the vibes of those films and
For
everything
sure,
from
yeah,
this.
those two.
Yeah, the very kinetic editing, Oscar-worthy sound design. I'm gonna call it right now. If this does not win the Oscar for best sound, what are we doing? But we could get more into that later on as we progress into this conversation. So, yeah, big fan of this movie. You're a big fan of this one. So let's break it down. Let's get into spoilers for Tuner.
Absolutely, yeah. So at this point, we've both seen it a couple weeks ago, so don't have to get into every plot detail and everything, but we'll give you the basic gist of it. And yeah, obviously, we both highly recommend it. Please go out and see this if you have the chance, and then listen to our spoiler discussion. So yes, we meet Leo Woodall as Nicky, who is a piano tuner. He works with Dustin Hoffman as Harry, and they're riding around in New York in this sort of beat up old van, going to these super rich houses mostly, and houses and apartments, and the ultra wealthy who, for the most part, sort of just keep their pianos as like a decoration in their giant foyer, and those pianos need to be tuned. And so, yes, we understand that Nicky is particularly skilled at this. He has a condition where he has sort of hypersensitivity in his hearing, and so he wears these headphones most of the time to dull the just like ambient sound that's in the air because it's like extremely loud to him. So yeah, it sort of sets it up. Like I said in the intro, it's sort of like both a superpower and a disability. Like it, depending on the context, it allows him to do some incredible things. But it's also a detriment to him in his everyday life, and it's something that's hard to live with. And yeah, so what did you think about this setup? Were you like into this immediately? The dynamic between Nicky and Harry and his learning about his condition.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by this whole trajectory and how like this guy's job is to tune pianos, but he also has a really sensitive hearing issue. And I'm like, how could that possibly work and everything? Just to be like, like you said, there we'll get into the superpower of it all momentarily, but like, the struggle of dealing with something like this is really, really traumatic for someone who, as we learned throughout the movie, he was a former music prodigy and everything. He had such a gift for that, and then he ended up having this very traumatic hearing loss and everything. And I really like the buildup of that and everything, but I also really like how we're set up and we're introduced to this world and these characters and everything. And already, you're just so in love with the dynamic between Nicky and Harry, like the old veteran, seasoned piano tuner, and then we have this this young prodigy and everything. And I really love the dynamic between the two of them. And we're not exactly told like how they're related and everything. Like they're not biologically related, but like Harry has been such a crucial part of Nikki's life since he was born and everything. So
Harry talks about Nikki's father a couple times, so I think we're meant to understand that they were friends. He's sort of like an uncle figure to him.
yes, yes, and you could tell that they have a very special dynamic with one another, special relationship. So I love the way that we were introduced to all this. I like the montage in the opening of them driving around and going to tune pianos, and I like how in the first scene where when the piano is being tuned, she's like, "Oh, can you clean up the toilets and everything?" And he's like, "Oh, for $500 we can."
Yeah, to the rich people, they're just sort of seen as like a servant in the house to do whatever, and yeah, it's Nikki just sort of has to like take that on the chin, and yeah, you're juxtaposing like all of these rich beautiful houses versus like they're going and having their lunch in like this small little burger joint, and like just the dichotomy there of like the super rich and the working class who serve them. So that's very much present throughout the film.
Yes. Now, should we get into the superpower element of it all?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think we'd set up first that he meets Ruthie while he's out on a job fixing a piano. So this is Havana Rose Lou's character. And they're meeting while she's practicing her piano at some prestigious school. I don't know if they mentioned exactly where it is, but she's studying
One of
music.
the bajillion music schools in New
Yeah.
York.
One of the super fancy ones. And yeah, it was sort of established there that he has perfect pitch. She sort of like tests him and sees if he can identify the different notes and everything. And yeah, it's just like clear that he's like super impressive, and yeah, this comes into play later.
Yes. Now the superpower of it all. So, like I said, I didn't know the plot at all. Like, I didn't know what the word tuner meant. Like, I didn't even know that it was about a piano tuner, quite frankly. I just, like, I thought his name was Tuner. So, like, I went into this, like, knowing little to nothing about it. So, one night he is just at the home of Harry and his wife, and Harry is unable to get into a safe to open up something. So then he asks if Nikki could help assist that and everything. And
to
Nikki's
get
like,
his
"Well,
hearing aids, which he never uses.
yes, exactly." And Nikki's like, "Well, how am I going to do that and everything?" So he listens very carefully when putting in the lock and everything, and he realizes that, oh, I don't even need to know the combination to open up these safes and everything. So this superpower is him being able to crack safes. And as the film, this opening segment commences, so we're still in the first act, like being introduced to the characters and everything. He has this job of tuning the piano one night at this fancy house and everything, but he is struggling to work and everything, even though nobody is inside the house, at least to his knowledge. But then he overhears noise upstairs and he's like, "Can you guys keep it down? I have to work and I can't hear myself as I'm tuning this piano and everything." And these guys are like, "Oh, we need help opening the safe. Once we open the safe, then we're out of your hair." So then that's when Nikki's like, "All right, get out of the way. Let me open up the safe." And then he starts getting himself involved with this shady group of people to crack open safes and make him big bucks and everything. And how did you feel about this element of it? Well, first, how well did you know the story going in? Like, did you really know the premise, or did you know like little to nothing similar to me?
Yeah, I knew the basic conceit and everything because I saw this later than you, at least for your first watch and stuff. So yeah, I had already heard some buzz about it and knew just that basic premise that he's like a piano tuner who can use that skill to crack safes. Like I kind of knew that it was going to get into the crime element there and everything, but none of the details, and obviously that it all gets filled out with devils in the details and everything. So yeah, I was aware of the basic premise. And then yeah, I liked how it all played out. I like the idea that Dustin Hoffman is this older piano tuner who needs his hearing aids and is stubborn and doesn't want to wear them. And there's a moment when they're doing a job when he sort of says he like can just feel the piano. He can kind of feel out the pitch, whereas we have Nikki with this crazy skill and this perfect pitch and everything. So yeah, the way that all developed, it's funny. He kind of like teaches himself on YouTube, which is like just feels very modern and everything. He learns how people crack safes just based on sound alone. And then yeah, once we get, I knew that he was gonna have to fall in with some burglars or something at some point. So yeah, the way that all happens is like he's like, okay, these guys are clearly robbing this place, but he's just kind of like, all right, let's just get them out of my hair, just do this to satisfy them. And then yeah, the way that that all sort of spirals out of control, it all played out in a way that made sense, and I think this sort of develops into him being out with Harry, and we get a great scene of Harry meeting Ruthie as they're like in a diner, and she walks in. They're nearby her school, and Harry sort of encourages Nikki to go and go out and date her and stuff, and he's like, oh, go carry her books and walk her to class. And he's like, it's not the 1950s. And so as they're doing that, they come back, and Harry has collapsed and had a medical episode, and so then it transitions to Harry being in the hospital. We meet his wife as well, and now Harry is in medical debt, and she also wants to sell the van for the piano tuning company. So at this point, it's like Nikki is getting kind of put between a rock and a hard place, and like, okay, I need money if I'm gonna buy this van off of them and keep the business going. I can't get a business loan because I don't have any credit. Harry's racking up medical debt that they already have on top of that. So it all kind of naturally aligns that, all right, I need to make a lot of money really fast, and I have this skill. This crew of guys wants to like kind of keep this thing going with me as the safe cracker. So it all makes sense how he like gets wrapped up into this.
Yeah, and I thought that this element was really interesting too, because like you said, now Nikki is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he obviously doesn't want to get into anything shady, but he's like, well, what other choice do I have if my partner in crime can't help me out and everything, and now he's stuck with all this medical debt, and I can't just buy the fan and help him out during his time of need. My only way of being financially stable and helping him out is by getting into this stuff with these very interesting, odd people. And I thought that made the story way more interesting than it already was. It added a lot more excitement to it, a lot more thrill to it. And I just thought that the blend of tones here was really impressive because, yeah, like a lot does happen in this movie. And I know that for some people, a complaint has been like, oh, it's very jarring that so much is happening, so many storylines. You have the Nikki and Harry stuff, the Nikki and Ruthie stuff, and then the Nikki doing this crime stuff and everything. And like, there's a lot of stuff happening. And I can know that for some, it can feel overwhelming to a degree. To me, I thought it all flowed very nicely. Like, it was all paced very well. And I think jumping from one story to another, like, yeah, it could feel overwhelming and jarring, but I think through the editing and through the way that the screenplay structures it, I think it all felt very smart with how it was structured and everything. And this whole element of, Nikki feeling kind of alive doing this, but really the main reason why he's doing this is to help out Harry. And I kind of loved that element of it. Like, yeah, sure, making more money is exciting and everything, but we all know that deep down, the main reason why he was doing this was because he wants to help out Harry. Because Harry has done so much for him already, he wants to return the favor for him.
Yeah, the Harry and Ruthie stuff definitely grounds all of the crime stuff with Yuri, I believe, is the like lead burglar
Hmm.
there and his crew. And yeah, it's not just a situation where he's like Nikki is like, "Oh, cool, I have this skill. I can go and make a bunch of money really fast." And you see him trying to do it the legit way, trying to get the business loan, and just through our, fucked up capitalist system, he just doesn't see any other way to succeed, which, again, that's another sort of Breaking Bad parallel that I was seeing, because it's that kind of thing where you can be like, okay, I can understand like how a decent person trying to do the right thing can
Hmm.
fall into this world of crime. So yeah, I think that all, it all flows really well. It all makes sense for his character, and we see Leo Woodall like struggling with that throughout. It's not just like an easy decision, even though it's gonna end up there.
Yeah. You brought up of how like the stuff with Harry and Ruthie is able to ground the crime stuff that's surrounding everything else in this movie, and I completely agree. Now I want to get your perception on the relationships because obviously there's a multitude of relationships throughout this movie. We've already touched upon the Harry and Nikki dynamic, but I want to get your 2 cents on how you felt about the Nikki and Ruthie dynamic because obviously, like, it wouldn't be a crazy story if there wasn't a love story involved. So, how did you feel about that? Because I thought the two of them had wonderful chemistry with each other, and Havana Rose Liu is just one of the most beautiful people I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It's very hard to not fall in love with her. I've been a big fan of her ever since Bottoms, and just like she just has this radiance to her that's just so hard to not fall in love with. So yeah, if I were Nikki, I would be falling in love with this girl too. So I don't blame him at all. And I mean, Nikki is a hunk himself. So of course, if I were Ruthie, I would also be yearning for him and everything. So yeah, how did you feel about that whole relationship element? Because I thought it was quite lovely.
I think it was really well done. Yeah, this role could definitely fall to just being like the stereotypical girlfriend or love interest.
Hmm.
Like if it were written poorly or performed poorly, like it could definitely just function as a just in service of Nikki's character. But
I'm
I
glad
I
they
think
didn't
that
do like a damsel in distress thing because I was worried they were going to
yeah.
do something like that. And I'm glad that they didn't do that at all.
Yeah, yeah, put her in direct danger or something where he
Hmm.
has to rescue her. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that it was all really well done. We see her being her own musical genius in her own right, and they have this shared interest that makes sense that they would gravitate towards each other beyond just being like two insanely hot people. And I think it makes sense for like the fact that Nikki is yes, of course, he's hot. Anyone would be like naturally attracted to that, but he's like kind of a off-putting guy. He's super quiet and not really. He's a bit gruff, and so the idea that it happens organically enough that she would has reasons to see him again, and that she's sort of intrigued by him and intrigued by his talent, and wants to get to know him a little bit better. And so yeah, and I think throughout the movie she pretty much she has her own agency. I think they don't ever, we can get into this later in the end in the sort of last section of the movie, but they sort of have a conflict that is like very, very genuine. It has like there sometimes with a couple in a movie you just feel like, okay, now is when they have to fight and have some sort of conflict with each other. And like in this one it's more than justified. Like it's so everything plays out just in a way that is completely understandable and makes sense for what they're both going for. And the sort of conflict and simmering underneath all of this before any of the plot stuff kicks in is that, Nikki used to be a music prodigy and had this great potential to be a great piano player, and now Ruthie is doing that in her life. She's going to school, she's trying to get sort of like an internship with this great composer, and she's kind of doing exactly what he wanted to do. And there's just sort of that sort of tension that he's he had this issue, he had this hypersensitivity that prevented him from doing that. And so the fact that they both understand that dream and they have that shared, but he's not able to execute it in the way that Ruthie is. And that's just a hard thing for a couple to deal with. The sort of resentment there, and that's just all, as they're getting to deeper into their relationship. You just really feel that like bubbling up, the way that they love being together, they like spending time together, but there's just this sort of like tension underneath that can't really be ignored.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that they were able to recognize that and add some agency to it because, again, whenever I watch a movie like this where there's a romance sprinkled on, it just feels very like saccharine and forced and there's nothing to it. But like here, I cared about these characters. I loved the two of them together. And when they were at their happiest, I was rooting for them. But then when they were at their lowest, I was terrified for them because I was so invested in these arcs because it's so well fleshed out. The screenplay, I was reading a whole bunch of reviews. I don't really feel like a lot of people are highlighting the screenplay. Like the sound work is obviously the star of the entire movie, absolutely. But I think the screenplay deserves a huge round of applause because, yeah, I brought up how it meshes all these different tones and genres and everything. But I think that the strongest element of the screenplay, aside from that, is how much urgency they give to these characters and make you so invested in their arcs. And yeah, I think that the romance between the two of them was really beautifully constructed. And I loved a lot of the scenes with them together, and I liked how realistic it was because there's that one sequence a little bit in the middle section of the movie, like after he's really gotten into the feel of doing the safe cracking business and obviously getting a lot of money under his belt. He gets this really like lavish gift for Ruthie. She brings up initially that she had these two gifts from her grandmother. One of them was the piano that he tuned, and then the other was this necklace, or was it a necklace or bracelet?
Watch.
A watch. It was a piece of jewelry. I don't remember which one it was. So it was a watch, and she talked about how it was one of the last things that she got from her grandmother, and she lost it on the subway one day. So then Nikki was able to find a watch that was somewhat akin to it and everything. And it's this really like special gift. She's like, I can't take this. Like, we've only
Well,
been
and
dating
he
for a
doesn't just
month.
he doesn't just find it in a store. He finds it in the safe of one of the houses that they're robbing.
I was gonna build up to that later on
I
because
know.
at this point we don't know that though. That's the thing. This
You see him like find it in the safe and look at it, and it sounds
oh,
like the
that's
description
true.
of what she said the watch looked like.
That's true. We just don't know who it belongs to at that
Yeah.
point. That's true. Like Veronica said, it's been a hot minute since we've seen this movie, and there's been a lot that's been happening. So sorry for all the on iffy details. But anyway, she's given this watch, and she's just like, what is it that we're doing exactly? Like, what is it that we're in right now? So I really liked those sequences a lot. So I was very impressed with that. And then I guess like going into other dynamics. Let's talk about the safe crack and stuff. Let's talk about that whole dynamic and everything. Because when it starts, and we know from the very beginning that this is very shady stuff, but when we're initially introduced to these ragtag of people, I was like, they seem like a vibe. They like the other two guys, and then the one with his little dog and everything like that. I liked that whole dynamic and everything. And Yuri, even though you could tell right from the get go that something's fishy about him, and fish do come up later on. I will get to that moment when I get to it, but yeah, this just made for a really exciting element too, because it's like you have this very funny side with Harry and Nikki, and then you have the very lovely side with Ruthie and Nikki, and now we have the very like intense, enthralling stuff with Yuri, his dynamic, and Nikki. So this whole element of it was just so cool. Like to me, when we got to this whole tuner cracking saves, I was like, this premise is just so fucking cool. Like, who comes up with something like this? This is like the most genius, clever premise that anyone could have came up with, and it's such a simple concept too. Like it's nothing extravagant. It doesn't mess with your head or anything. Like it's a very straightforward concept of this piano tuner who could crack saves. And this whole dynamic between this group was really exciting. It started off on a very promising note. And then obviously, as the pieces are weaving together, it gets darker and darker and darker. And I didn't think that it was going to get as dark as it did. But once we got to that point, I was like, holy shit. Like, jaw on the floor, sinking in the seat, hand over the mouth, just terrified for our character right now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's important for the crime elements of it to feel grounded. Like, we no one wants to watch a crime or a thriller movie where like the burglars, the ones who get our character embroiled in all this mess are just caricatures. If they were just like instantly scary right off the bat or intimidating or anything, like, we he just discovers them and like yes, they are indeed breaking into a safe, but you get the sense that, I mean, I think they try to convince him at one point by saying like they're trying to get him on like his first job or something. They're like the guy who owns this house is like he owns some evil company. I forget what field they say that he works in, but they're like,
Right.
yeah, like this is, getting into that like capitalism argument. You're just doing this out of desperation when this person has so much and we have so little and all of that. And as he's like cracking the safe, I think one of the other guys is like, didn't you say this guy like invented NutriBullet or something, like the blenders? And he was like, yeah, I have one, it's great. And it's like just the idea that like, these are smart people. They understand like what Yuri, the lead one, knows what he needs to say to Nikki to talk him into something, and or to talk himself out of something. And yeah, we get from the other guys, they're a bit of like almost comic relief. They're sort of like a more grounded version of like goofy henchmen. And so we're off put by them. Definitely, we're like, okay, this could go badly, but you're not like scared of them initially. You're like, and once they get into a routine with Nikki cracking these safes and stuff, like you get into a point of the movie when everything is going well. It's like, yeah, this is a pretty like finely tuned operation. Like they have access to these houses. Nikki has this skill. It kind of, kind of a victimless crime for the most part for a little bit there, besides rich people losing, a couple expensive things. So, yeah, you're not ever like, oh my God, these guys are psychopaths. Like it's just, they're doing their thing. They're willing to get shady to do it. And yeah, so I think that's all really well realized. Like we didn't need them to be super dramatic right off the bat. Like it is enough for them to reel Nikki in. And yeah, so it goes well for a while, and then there's sort of a part of the movie where it's like, okay, this is becoming like the downfall now. Like we've ridden the high of everything working out, and like everything is gonna kind of turn sour now. And I think that kind of most kicks off with that. Can we talk about that sequence at the house near the airport, which is like A
That was the
really
scene I was
intense,
alluding to with the fish.
yes, a really intense part of the movie, where Yuri and his guys have been like asking Nikki on these jobs and everything, and I don't remember if Nikki specifically like tries to quit or something, but he's like, okay, it's for whatever reason he hasn't been, he hasn't approved going on this job where he walks into a house and there are a whole bunch of other people there, and they're not stealing from this house, but they're trying to crack a safe to get some sort of like cryptocurrency code
Hmm.
from someone in their group there, and so yeah, he's like, okay, I didn't like this isn't like a normal, we're sacking a rich person's house thing. Like, I don't know what's going on here. It feels shadier. And this house happens to be located right next to an airport. And so as the planes are going overhead, it's triggering Nicky's sound as he's trying to listen to the safe. And so we have we have one of the guys outside, like watching for the planes, giving him a heads up when it's coming, and all of this tension and everything. And then it gets even worse from there as I think the person who they're trying to steal from comes home. But yeah, what did you think of that one? Because I feel like for most of the movie, of the whole movie, that was like when I was most edge of my seat.
Oh, 100%. Like, that's where the guy lean forward meme came
Yeah.
into clutch. Like, that's where it came out and everything. Because, like, just sitting there, because, like, I knew I had heard that this was, like, a thriller and everything, like a part thriller and what have you. But I was like, see, we haven't really gone to the thriller territory yet. I'm like, are people just saying it's a
Early.
thriller just for the hell of it? And then we finally get to this point, and yeah, it's very intense because, like, they have to put their phones in this fish tank and everything. And of course, like Nikki being the guy that has the hard hearing and everything, all these planes are overflowing and everything, and it's really affecting his sound. And then the guy whose house they robbed, he gets shot by the guy who was outside watching the planes and everything. And Nikki runs away. And also before that too, there was a copy of the password for this wallet and everything, and Nikki was forced to eat it. So Nikki didn't have it and everything until we find out that after he leaves and everything, after he flees and everything, we learn that he knows the code, he puts it in, and this wallet holds close to $18 million. And just when you thought things weren't going to get crazy, Harry ends up passing away. So already, like after Nikki witnessing this very traumatic thing, now he just lost like the person in his life who meant the most to him.
Yeah.
And it was very sad, that sequence and everything. Like just like the build up to that whole segment and everything. It was very devastating.
Yeah, and crucially, when that plays out and the guy gets shot, the gunshot goes off near Nicky's head, and so his ears are ringing from the large sound and everything, and so it's like, oh yeah, I haven't even considered that if something happens to his hearing, like that's his life down the drain basically, like that's how he
Hmm.
is making his living and also doing this crime and all of it. Like you realize how like vulnerable that is as he runs out and he throws up from some combination of like the stress and the sound, like I'm sure that messes with him like physically and everything. So yeah, it's a super intense sequence, and then yeah, as I said, this is sort of like the downfall where everything starts unraveling as Harry dies, and I Yuri, I believe, comes to Harry's Shiva like at the funeral to sort of intimidate him and say like I'm here with your beloved friends and family and everything, and sort of this is where he starts becoming more of a intimidating, threatening presence where it's like, yeah, you don't really have a choice in this anymore. Like you're our safe cracking guy, and whether you want to stop or not, like I'm gonna need you to keep working for us. So he's dealing with that. He's dealing with Harry's death. I think at this point he kind of has that big fight with Ruthie, where she's preparing for her big recital that's going to be like the culmination of her school career, and they have that moment where they're fighting a little bit, and Ruthie says to Nikki, well, you're not working toward anything, and he explains that like I could have been doing what you're doing, but 10 times better. Like I was even more talented than you. I was a genius. I was supposed to be doing all this until this disability took it away essentially. And he says he had that line that was like, I'm working towards just being okay every day, something like that. And
Hmm.
that's just like so powerful because you're thinking about again where these two have this connection built towards music and loving that as a skill and an art and everything. But for Nikki, it's just so fraught. It's this thing that is like haunting him every single day. He's working with these pianos, and it's something that he thought was going to be part of his life in a very different way, and now he's got to use that skill to do these untoward things that he doesn't want to be involved with anymore. And he's just they're just so the clash there makes so much sense. And of course, he can't tell Ruthie what he's going through with the burglars and everything. So yeah, it's a very like organic conflict, and it's like you just feel for Nikki kind of being stuck there and not knowing what to do and what's right.
Yeah. And then after this huge fight, he gets captured by Yuri and his gang, and he blasts this air horn in his ear and everything, which
Just the
was,
second you see an air horn, you're like,
yep,
oh God, like I understand what that means for him now, and it's
hmm,
it's just so like scary.
yeah, and it's just like watching that scene unfold was really, really intense and honestly kind of difficult to watch too, especially like when I saw the movie the second time, I watched it in Dolby. You also saw it in that format too,
Yeah.
and just like
Hmm.
this like Dolby heightened the sound. Like the sound work was already very loud, like on a regular projection, but on Dolby, oh, it was like 10 times louder. And I'm just like, oh, you're really immersed in this world with everything. Like you feel like you're there and everything. You feel like you're in Nikki's shoes in that moment. Just like it's so loud and disorientating, and it's like. It was just very heartbreaking to watch. It was kind of like watching somebody get shot, and it was very difficult to stomach in.
Yeah, yeah, you can just see like the physical pain that he's in addition to what that means for his hearing and everything. So yeah, they're kidnap him and want him to. I guess they have some other way of accessing the code for this account with all this money in it, and so they've kidnapped him. He has to. They're forcing him to crack the safe, even though he's like, you just blew out my fucking ears. Like I can't. I need to like recover from that. And so they're trying to like get him to. I think he says like he needs to drink coffee and that helps or
Yeah.
something, like to
Hmm.
kind of like wake him up a bit, or I don't know what necessarily that has to do with it. But yeah, so it's interesting. They're trying to get him to do that, and this is intercut with Ruthie having her recital performance, and obviously she's looking in the audience and he's not there, and so this it's a really great sequence where we're watching him crack the safe, and it's taking longer than usual because his ears are still out of whack, and she's doing her performance. The composer that she wants to impress is in the audience, and it's just this really great sequence of editing and tension building, and so obviously he gets there eventually. He cracks the safe. He's got to rush to try to get to the performance. But yeah, what did you think of that sequence? I thought that was like pretty well done to
That
build
was
that tension.
fantastic editing work. Because again,
Yeah.
I brought up in my initial thoughts that this reminded me a lot of like a hybrid between Whiplash and Sound of Metal, and that's absolutely where I got the Whiplash vibes from. Because
Yeah.
Whiplash is a film that has very frenetic energy to it, especially through its editing, and this reminded me so much of the editing that like when it was cutting back and forth between not only the music performance sequences, but like I kept thinking a lot about the sequences where like Miles Teller's character was racing to these
Mhm.
competitions and everything, like racing through his life. And I was thinking a lot about those sequences. And I would love to know if the editor of this film was maybe inspired by Tom Cross's editing in Whiplash and everything, very frenetic, hyperactive energy. But it made it all the more intense because editing could really make or break a movie. And I think that the very quick cut editing here really enhanced the intensity of the entire situation. So I loved this sequence, and I loved particularly of how it was edited.
For sure. Yeah. And so he gets there. He misses the performance, I think. He gets there just as it's ending and as Ruthie is having a meeting with this composer that she wants to impress, and um he offers her the internship or scholarship or whatever it is that she's after, and then we get this moment where he asks about her watch and wants to see the inside of it and the inscription and stuff, and of course this is a watch that was stolen from his house, I assume, from his one of the safes that Nikki cracked, and this is his grandmother's watch from the Holocaust, I believe, and it's like got super important familial meaning and everything. And this was a moment that I could definitely see someone being like, that's a little too neat, that's a little too much of a coincidence, but for me it worked because kind of again going back to the Breaking Bad comparison, sometimes on that show it would be like a moment of coincidence can actually feel like it's this like grander Shakespearean downfall. Like it's the character just like having this, karmic fate that's brought on by their hubris. And if the rest of the story is grounded enough, I think you can make that work. It's not just like not like the whole movie was riddled with coincidences like this. It's like, oh shit, yeah, there's gonna be that one thing that, like, he's trying to juggle all of this craziness and this intensity, and like that's where your worlds are gonna collide and be like, you can't just get away with doing this. Like it's all gonna come crashing down at some point. And yeah, and that's the moment where I'm like, Ruthie is just okay. You've I don't really know you that well after we've been getting to know each other for months at this time, and I was nervous about you giving me this watch so early on in our relationship and what that meant, and now it's like stolen from the guy who I am like trying to impress in my career, and so like this huge moment for me that you've ruined it. Like it's just like, again, everything comes crashing down. Like it's just such a genuine point of no return for them as a couple. And and again, it doesn't just feel like this inorganic, like they need to fight now and have an issue. Like it just, everything kind of culminates here, and it's
Yep.
like, shit, I can't get myself out of this mess I've made.
Yeah, and he offers that as long as she isn't put into blame and she isn't taken away this incredible opportunity, that he is going to take back the watch and bring it to him in return, as long as the police are not involved in everything. So,
Yeah. There was
Nikki,
a second watch, so he just wants him to get that, and then he'll, let
yes,
bygones be bygones.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So Nikki, being the motivated guy that he is, he's like, okay, I'm going to convince them. All I need is the watch, and then we part ways, and that is it. I don't go to the police. I don't rat anyone out. I grab the watch and I make my way out of here. But of course, that does not sit well with Yuri. Hey, I ain't giving you the watch and everything. And then I like the whole sequence of how Nikki reveals like the history behind the watch, and then Benny and Yanni, who are Yuri's two assistants and everything, he's like, you stealing a watch from the Holocaust or something is bad juju or something. Like,
Bad juju to steal a Holocaust watch. Yep.
yes, yes,
I wrote
yes.
that down too.
And then of course Yuri doesn't give a shit about that, so he viciously beats Nikki to a pulp. And then again, just when we thought that the intensity was couldn't get any higher, he ruptures his eardrum. The air horn makes a return and everything, and then he pulls out his knife, and the movie just cuts. Like it cuts, and we're like, "What the hell happened?" Like we don't know exactly what happened. So Nikki wakes up in the hospital, and we learn that Yuri has cut off his earlobe, and now he is partially deaf, but no longer needs earplugs to tolerate noise. But however, now he's struggling even more to hear because of this situation. But on the good side, at least, he has the watch now. How did you feel about the decision of like cutting before seeing what ended up happening and everything? And do you have any theories what happened to Yuri and his people in that moment?
Oh, like what, after they, did they get away with everything and everything? Yeah, I guess that it was definitely like that cut as he's, got a knife coming at his ear and everything, when again, that's like something that we know is like his biggest vulnerability and his biggest strength and all of that. And so yeah, I think that was a brilliant cut. It was like everyone was like left in the lurch, like, oh my god, what just happened? And I get kind of the sense that he cut just the ear lobe, but like I don't think it necessarily, like I thought he was gonna like cut off his ear and everything.
That's what I
but,
thought too. Yeah.
yeah. But from the air horn blowing in his face, it ruptured his eardrum enough to sort of counteract the hypersensitivity. Like he kind of loses that. So yeah, I don't know from there, I guess, like, and that's also kind of a thing where the, Yuri is not this total, psychopath, cardboard cutout criminal character. Like he puts him through this, and he's like, hey, you want to come and steal from me? Like you're going to get punished for it. I'm going to rupture your eardrum and take away this skill that you have. But he's like, hey, but you can also have the watch. Like it's it's again a moment where he's like, this somewhat complex guy, and he kind of feels like Nikki, did us a service. He worked with us for so long. Like it didn't end well. We did
Yeah,
not
I really wonder
part
what
mutually,
made
but
like what convinced him to get the watch. Or like I wonder what made him just give away the watch, or did someone like attack him? I don't, I would love to know what happened.
yeah,
But I guess
I just feel
it's
like he thinks he earned it. Like
yeah, even though he got his earlobe cut off, and like Nikki did emphasize, he's like, I'm not going to rat anyone out. I just want to watch and to get the fuck out of here. Like you guys can go about your day and continue to rob safes and everything, but just give me back the watch.
yeah, for sure. It was just the thing of like, okay, I feel like we've punished him enough. He's paid for it, and so he can have this watch that will smooth things over with these situations. So yeah, then we can move to what is the final scene, and I believe he's going to the composer's house to return the watch. Like he's now
Yes.
trying to give him back this second
Mm-hmm.
one. And so as he's there, he has a moment with him, played by Jean Reno, we should say, who is like he
Yep.
gives a really cool performance and has that like he's mentioned earlier in the movie and then has like this gravitas when he shows up and stuff. So you get why this is like such a big deal for her to impress this guy. And so yeah, they have a moment and he's just kind of accepts it, kind of forgives him and moves on. And then Ruthie is there working as his assistant, and so Ruthie and Nikki see each other and have a moment. And so throughout the movie, Ruthie has asked Nikki, like, play something for me on the piano. You used to play all the time, used to be this genius, and Harry tries to encourage him to play for her and all this stuff, and he's always so reluctant because, as we said, he has all this baggage wrapped up in it. But he's tuning this piano there, and he just plays this magnificent piece of music. I mean, I am far from a piano expert. I don't really like anything sounds pretty good to me, but it sounded pretty good, and she's impressed. She's blown away by what he can do, and then just that like perfect last line of him being like E flat is out and he's still got this incredible sensitivity and skill for it and stuff. And I kind of like the parallel that his hearing is not as good now. He also has to kind of feel out the piano the way that Harry did with his poor hearing in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did that whole final scene work for you?
I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful way of wrapping up the movie. It was this big, massive emotional wow to see him play this beautiful, grand piece of music and everything, and then end with a funny little joke. E flat is out, and it's like, yeah, he was mirroring what Harry was in the beginning. Like it was a very interesting full circle moment that now he's essentially. Like, I mean, yeah, he's now going to be the Harry anyway because Harry has since passed on and everything. But now he fully has gotten himself into Harry's shoes to where now he has to listen to the pianos differently now because of his situation. Obviously, Harry's was aging, but now Nicky is like, now he doesn't have much accessibility with his hearing anymore. So it'd be really interesting to see what he does going forward. If he tunes pianos or whatever, or maybe he gets back into music, I would love to know all that elements and everything. But yeah, I love the way it wrapped up. I thought it was a very beautiful and poignant way of wrapping it up, but then just ending it with a nice touch of that line. So I thought it ended on a really strong note.
Yeah, I was like pumping my fist at that last line. I was like, that's just
Yeah,
so
that's a
like
good. That's
in
a
addition to
big. That's
being
a big fuck yeah
emotional.
moment.
Yeah, in addition to being emotional and everything, I was just like, hell yeah. Like that was just like it was such a cool way to take you out of the movie and everything. And yeah, I think that it does, leave it open ended what he's gonna do from here and everything. But earlier in the movie, Nikki and Ruthie are one of their conversations are having. I think Nikki says that line about like tuning a piano is creating harmony out of chaos, and you have to be comfortable with imperfection to do that, like that sort of thing. So I kind of get the sense that like yeah, he's gonna move forward being a piano tuner, and his skill isn't, it's not going to be as easy for him now. Like we said, he's going to have to adapt to it the way that Harry did with hearing loss. And but it's just like he's gonna keep pushing forward. He's been through all of this shit, but he's just gonna sort of take the good and take the bad and keep going. I think that that's pretty like well defined from his character. He kind of like just will he's been through a lot, but he's gonna just keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just a few things to highlight before we give our reigns and everything. Can we just spend the rest of this podcast talking once again of how brilliant the sound is and why it should win the Oscar?
For sure, yeah. It was cool to hear Johnny Byrne talk about it at the Q&A. And he mentioned he had a sort of incident like that. He had some sort of injury that caused him to have that hypersensitivity for like a temporary period of time, like a few months or something like that. So he was like familiar with the sensation from a firsthand account. And I think it's smart. He also talked about how they didn't want to play too much with like putting the movie into Nikki's perspective. If you were, toggling between like the super loud sound versus the muffled when he has the headphones on, that kind of thing. I think it's used a handful of times, like to really good effect. But yeah, mostly it's just that really cool fine tune, like the safe cracking, all of the hearing the little tiny clicks of everything moving into place, and that as well as the couple of times that we've pointed out with the air horn. At one point in Ruthie's apartment, a fire alarm goes off and it really disrupts his hearing. The gunshots and stuff like that. It's like loud sound is used really. It's used sparingly, but to great effect when like, oh, this shit, like this is a big moment for Nikki. And even just like the scenes walking around in the city and in the car and stuff like that. Like just everything feels so finely tuned because that's how Nikki would be hearing it. Like you're just more aware of like, oh, a dog is barking over there, and like it kind of makes you consider things that you wouldn't have before. And yeah, you're just kind of hyper aware of every single sound because you know how it's affecting our main character here.
Yeah, absolutely. The sound work is outstanding. It's like we've stated throughout this entire discussion. It's the MVP of the movie. It's truly remarkable stuff. And yeah, they do a lot of really cool things with the sound work here. And I'm excited to hopefully see it. If it doesn't win, I wanted to at least get nominated for best sound, and I feel like it absolutely will. And it helps too that the person who was involved with the sound just won an Oscar a few years back, so that definitely helps. And the performances I think are outstanding. I think everyone is great. Leo Wadall has this great charismatic lead-in man energy to him that I don't really think we see a lot of nowadays. I think that he is a star in the making, and I'm really, really excited to see more from him. Truly, I think he is just outstanding here, and yeah, and his chemistry with everybody on screen is wonderful. Like literally, he has great dynamic with every single screen partner that he has with Dustin Hoffman, with Havana Rose Liu, with the guy who plays Yuri, with the woman who plays Harry's wife. Like
Yeah, Tova Feld, she's really great as well.
yeah, everyone is great. Dustin Hoffman is wonderful. It's so wonderful to see him in a role like this, especially because it's always fun whenever you see a very seasoned actor in a project like this given a really great supporting performance that reminds you of why you love them so much as an actor. And Havana Rose Liu continues to be one of the most exciting talents that we have out there today. So I think everyone in the cast did a wonderful job, but Leo Wadall in particular is really spectacular here. I thought he was absolutely wonderful. So how did you feel about the performances?
Yeah, yeah, definitely right to point out Leo first overall. Like it's he has that really kind of like classic feel. Like he's almost like I don't know James Dean esque or something, where he's like got that kind of strong silent thing going on, and but you can definitely see all of the everything flashing over his eyes, and he can be emotional when he needs to and everything like that. So yeah, I think this was a great sort of showcase for him. And yeah, it was cool. Dustin Hoffman, showing up in this smaller part, and it's kind of, in his earlier career, this is kind of the kind of movie that he might have starred in, and had that sort of role and everything. And yeah, Havana Rose Liu continues to impress. She's in so many things. Like we're talking about the year of Pattinson and Zendaya. I feel like she's been popping up in things so consistently since Bottoms, and I love to see it. She's just so wonderful. And there's great moments. I think and, we talked about the romance and their relationship a little bit, but I feel like the getting to know each other, the like flirting stuff is really well done as well, because that can be a little little corny, a little forced or something. But I love the moment when he comes to fix her piano and it's gotten water damage, and so there she's like. She wants to know how much it's going to cost and everything, and he's like, I'll do this for free because normally I'm tuning like rich people's pianos that are just like decoration in their house, but like this piano is like, this is important, this is like something that you use every day to create beautiful music. And she says something like, well, if he says it normally costs $5,000, she's like, can I make you a 5,000 bowl of pasta? And we get a really nice scene of them like sitting on the floor eating, and there's a really great visual of the piano keys like all laid out because they've taken them out to dry out, and it's just really beautiful, like the piano keys like surrounding them in the room. And so yeah, just everything there with their dynamic, like that was I loved him with Dustin Hoffman as well, but I feel like he and Havana Rose Liu just really like popped on the screen. And it's sometimes you take two hot young stars and just mash them together, and it's like they're not really, don't really have the chemistry necessarily. So
Yeah,
I feel like they totally had it here, and
right.
I'd love if they
Absolutely.
worked together again or something.
Yeah, and like you brought up of how she's in so many projects ever since Bottoms, and yeah, she's done literally so much, and like she is also in Power Ballad, which comes out next week and everything, which we'll be talking about on the show. And then she's currently filming in the Elden Ring movie that Alex Garland has directed. She's obviously in Nicholas Swan the Reference new movie. She's also in Jesse Eisenberg's next movie, Tuner. She was just in Lurker. She was just on
Right, yeah.
stage. She was also just in How and Harper. So she's done a lot of stuff in just the last 3 years alone, and she's also done work on stage, so she's everywhere. And honestly, good for her because she's a really wonderful talent. And I mean, of course, like she's so beautiful and everything, but she's also a really gifted actor too. I'm very excited to see more from her, to where I really hope that she's given an opportunity to be the legit lead of a film. And I really hope that that's soon.
Yeah, I hope she has some a sort of breakout like this is for Leo Woodall. Because yeah, she does played a supporting role, and those movies you just listed off, like this one, she's practically the second lead. But in other ones, like she is definitely just a part of the ensemble. Like that's cool that she's can just kind of plug in anywhere, and she has a really like naturalistic feel where you can like kind of see her existing in any world. So yeah, I hope she has an even bigger breakout and can like really lead a project sometime soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do you have anything final to say about Tuner before we rate it?
I think we covered it all. Yeah, this is a really cool, fun, intense movie. But yeah, I like you said earlier. I think like I could recommend this to just about anyone if you like any sort of crime action threat. It's not even all that much action, but it feels like they managed to make
It it has a little bit of everything for everyone, I think.
yeah,
Like this movie has a romance, it has action, it has comedy, it has drama, thrill. It has everything for anyone to enjoy. So,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. What would you rate it?
This was 4 stars for me, but like it's pushing 4.5. I've on a rewatch it might get bumped up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's 4 stars for me as well, and haven't seen it twice. Like, I think that when I do eventually watch this again, I do think that it has the potential to be bumped up to a 4.5 because it's like it's literally teetering on the 4.5 right now. Like, it's right there. Like, it's very very close. It's like 4.4 out of 5 right now. So it's just right there, right there. But yeah, Tuner was great. Tuner was a really pleasant surprise, and I'm very excited that now everybody gets the chance to see it. So definitely let us know your thoughts on Tuner. And now we have to take a different journey.
Yes. Now, the next big review of the week, we have Kane Parsons' Backrooms. This is one that's going to be interesting to dissect. So first, our non-spoiler thoughts as best we can, and then we'll all head into the backrooms together and break it down with spoilers. So, Brian, did you have any relationship to the existing YouTube platform before this? Were you aware of Kane Parsons? And then, what did you think of Backrooms?
So I had seen the YouTube series years ago, like a long time ago, and when they announced that they were bringing it to feature film form and A24 was distributing it, and we had Kate Parsons attached to the direct, and I'm like, oh my god, we're literally gonna have. At the time, he was 19 when he directed this. I'm like. That is so inspiring. Like that is just so cool that a 19-year-old is being given the opportunity to direct a film for A24. Like that is so sick and so inspiring. And obviously, similar to Obsession a few weeks ago, I was like, man, these YouTuber turned filmmakers keep rising and rising. They're younger than me and they're doing cool things, and I'm just sitting on my ass doing nothing. So you can imagine that when this movie ended, I'm just like, this guy did this and I'm not doing anything. Like what? That's insane that he was able to do this. But I was very excited for this. I thought it looked really promising from the trailers, and it also helped that you had in my opinion, two of the great actors we have working today headline the film in Chiwetel Ejiofor and the queen herself, Miss Renata Reinsva. So I was really excited to see this. I was really curious of how they were going to take someone that was a short series and adapt it into a feature-length film. It's been about 36 hours since I've seen the movie. And I have to be honest, I'm still really digesting how I feel about it. I think that this is a movie that might warrant another watch for me to fully grasp what it is that I just witnessed. So overall, I liked it to a degree. I didn't love it as much as I had wanted to. I also didn't love it as much as the people that I was with because I went with my friends, all of whom love the Backroom series. Most of them are not into movies the way that you and I are, so naturally they were going to be a lot higher on it. But I will say that as a directorial debut, this is a very impressive feat of filmmaking. I was really impressed with how Kane Parsons was able to direct these scenes and be given the opportunity to put this film out there and create something that was very unsettling, very unnerving, and really, really, really creepy. We brought up with Tuner of how the sound design was the star of that movie. I think the star of this movie is the production design, cuz holy shit. Like how do you
Definitely.
create something like this? Quite frankly, I don't understand how you're able to do something like this. And we'll gush about that as the review progresses and everything. But I thought this was a really impressive debut. I thought the performances were fantastic. I thought the two of them were really, really good. I think Chiwetel Ejiofor delivers his best performance in years. It's been a long time since I've seen him deliver something that really took me aback. And I was like, oh my God, this is a reminder why you're one of the best that we have out there today. Without spoiling anything yet, I adored the first half. The second half lost me a little bit once, like with most horror movies, once everything is explained to us, I was just like, "Oh, I don't know how I'm feeling about this, quite frankly." But I thought it started off so strong. I thought it had a lot of really cool ideas, but I don't think the ideas fully stuck the landing. But overall, I liked the movie. I enjoyed watching it. I had a great time with my friends and everything. There's a lot of sequences that are going to get under my skin as the days go by and everything, but I liked it. I just didn't like it as much as I wanted to. But it's a thumbs up for me, but not like an overly thumbs up for me. So I'm pro Backrooms, but I'm not the way that I was about Obsession a few weeks ago. Like that to me is the horror film that I'm really celebrating. This is not at that level for me. So yeah, Backrooms is going to be interesting to dissect. Now, we haven't talked about our thoughts and everything, so I don't know where you land on the movie, and I'm very curious to see where you land. So, what were your expectations going into this film, and how did you feel about it overall?
Yeah, not to be boring and not all that not that dramatic, but I feel pretty similar the way you do. Going into it, I definitely had not no relationship to the YouTube series and everything. I'd heard of it, and it definitely just seemed like the sort of ambient thing that you see online, like the creepy pasta kind of thing that I wasn't necessarily ever all that into, but you just kind of, find it through osmosis. And so, yeah, kind of aware of the concept, aware that, Kane Parsons was this young director who was getting this big shot with A24 and to work with these Oscar nominated actors. So obviously just some hype goes into that because you're just like, okay, they wouldn't have signed on to this if it wasn't something to it. So yeah, I think I was kind of going into this without many expectations. I was like, probably not my kind of horror. Like it seems, maybe a little gimmicky. It's a little bit its own kind of thing that I'm not really its own vibe that I'm not necessarily tuned into. So didn't really have many expectations, but and it's odd, like now, yeah, since seeing it, I saw it a couple days ago too, and I just kind of feel like I don't really know what to feel about it because going into it, like I said, no real expectations. But as I was watching it, I was definitely getting pulled in a lot. I was really just kind of enjoying it's a slower movie than a lot of horror movie. I mean, not entirely. It definitely, it's got its jump scares and it's got its big moments of tension and everything. But it allows itself to be like pretty meditative, and a lot of that is just like the backrooms setting as you're just exploring that and everything. And I kind of feel like because it's not my personal brand of horror that I really latch onto, it kind of makes me a little bit more open to it. I'm just kind of like, okay, like this is a world that I'm not necessarily all that tapped into, and so it was just kind of intriguing to me to see it a little bit. And this is for sure gonna get compared to Obsession a lot. It's even though I have, somewhat mixed feelings about both movies, I am thrilled that they are like smashing box office records. I think Obsession like beat out Mandalorian and Grogu for a weekend, and Backrooms is releasing now, and I think that's expected to perform just as well. And like that is just like wildly exciting to me. Like the fact that these super indie horror movies with super young directors, untested, are blowing up like this. Like that's just a very exciting part of this story. So just outside of the movie itself, but. So comparing it to that, I think that Obsession was the kind of thing where like that is more of the horror that I'm into, that like, a ghost possession movie that has this sort of like social commentary behind it, versus this being something that's a little more vibes based, a little more like just about the environment and everything. So it actually I kind of made the comparison in my brain to how I feel about Hereditary and Midsommar, where like Hereditary is that sort of like ghost story, the family trauma is the real ghost thing that I really like and have a lot of thoughts and feelings about, versus Midsommar is like this folk horror thing that I'm not as tuned into, so I can actually like enjoy that one a little more because I'm not like as critical of it. So Yeah, that's when I was watching it, I was kind of having those thoughts of like, I don't really know where this is going, and I don't really know how I feel about it, but like I'm watching, and it's the kind of thing where like coming out of it, I was like, okay, the characters are like maybe a little thin. It's really elevated by Chiwetel and Renata. Like I think if you had lesser actors in this role, this movie would be significantly worse. But you know, regardless, like the concept is just it's like hypnotic and compelling and unsettling. And for sure, you said it, the set design is just incredible. And I've listened to a couple interviews with Kane Parsons since seeing it, but I haven't really heard anyone dig into like the actual physical creation of this. I don't really know how they did a lot of this, and so that's it's really cool because I mean, not that I'm any filmmaking expert or anything like that, but some of these things just seem like, oh my god, it feels really practical. It feels really expansive and also claustrophobic at times. Like that's it's just so smart the way that it I'm not usually a big fan of like dream logic kind of movies where it kind of feels like anything can happen, and this does veer into that territory. But I was actually on board with it for most of the way. Even though it's sort of like as it's settling, I'm like, what was that? Like, it's an odd sort of feeling, and I'm a bit mixed on it, but definitely worth checking out because I think it's pretty unique.
Yeah, even saying it's unique feels like an understatement. Like this is a
Yeah.
very like I mean, this is a the kind of horror that we definitely need more of. And I think it's really exciting that a studio like A24 believed in someone like Kate Parsons and gave him the opportunity to bring this to feature film territory. And the results are mostly good. There's some middle end results, but we'll get into that right now with our spoiler talk. And there's a lot to break down. We will try to not be here for 5 hours. We'll do our best with breaking everything down. So, you know, Veronica set up the story with Tuner. I'll try to set up the story with Backrooms and everything. So first thing for me is that like I didn't realize that this took place in the 90s. So already I was like, okay, I'm hooked. Like I thought this took place now in present day, and I had only seen the trailer maybe once when it came out. I just assumed that this took place in current day. I didn't think that it took place in the past, but hey, I'm all for that. I love myself a period piece, a very unconventional kind of period piece. So the opening sequence of the film, we get this. So I don't even know how to describe it because
It's like trying to describe a dog and then having someone draw it.
exactly. So we get this opening set piece that's entirely told through found footage cameras and everything from a camcorder. It's shot to look like one take, and I think that they made it look like one. I don't know how they did it, but anyway, we see this shot of this person going into these back rooms and everything, and just discovering everything, and it's very eerie. It's a great way of opening up the film to capture what the vibe for the rest of the movie is going to be like. And already, like, we don't know anything about the characters. We don't know any characters because we don't see any characters. We're just seeing the room, and the back rooms themselves are a character of its own if you want to look at it that way. But this opening introduces us to this setting, and like I said, this was a perfect way of starting up the film to basically remind you of what this tone is going to be through the rest of the almost 2 hour runtime. And the opening to me might have been my favorite sequence in the entire film. And it's always unfortunate when you say that the opening was the high element of a film and then it fizzles. And not that it like severely fizzled for me, at least for the first half of the movie. Like I was really into it for the first half. But I think that this opening was so terrifying and so unsettling to the point where I was sitting there and I'm like, this might be one of the scariest openings to any film that I've seen in maybe my entire life, which is saying a lot because horror is very picky for me. I'm very critical of horror. If you don't scare me or creep me out or unsettle me, then you don't do your job. It's like when you watch a comedy. If it doesn't make you laugh in any capacity, then it really failed. But this opening in particular really got under my skin. And I was just like, well, what is the rest of the movie going to be like at this rate? Like, what is he going to cook for us for the rest of this? But this opening, I thought was genius. I thought it introduced us to this world really, really well before we get into the characters. the actual main story of this movie. I thought it was a really good introduction and everything. So I was very impressed with the way that this film opened up. So how did you feel about this particular opening segment before we get into introducing us to these characters and their stories and what have you?
Yeah, it's effective, and I definitely, like I said, didn't know too much about the movie itself going in, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be like primarily this sort of found footage style. And I think ultimately it ends up being a mix. There is a significant portion of found footage stuff, and I think it weaves both of them in pretty effectively. And yeah, from this first scene, I can definitely say, like, I talked about the potential box office for this movie, the audience that I saw it in, and I saw it at like a 4 o'clock weekday screening. Like it was almost probably about three-fourths full. And from this very first scene, people were squirming, people were like looking very scared and uncomfortable. And like I think this is gonna be, it's just so effective. It's just like something that really, like, people are gonna see and be like, oh, this was like an experience. It's more than just a narrative movie. So yeah, this sets the tone for that really well before we even get into any characters, just letting the concept be the star.
It was just like I couldn't believe what they were able to pull off in that opening. I was just like, and found footage movies just don't do anything for me. They never have. Like
Yeah, they're not usually one
The
of my
Blair
favorites
Ridge
either.
Project is a good movie and everything, but like I never really found myself ever connected to the found footage trope and everything. And here it's used very effectively. And we'll talk about how it's used throughout the entirety of the movie because obviously it comes back later on in the film. But I really loved this opening. I think that this was like a strong way of opening it up. And even people I've talked to that didn't like the movie, they loved the way that it opened up because of how this sequence was constructed and everything. And it went on long, and you were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, please just cut away. Please stop, turn it off." Like it was very unsettling, and like the music obviously had a lot to do with that too. And yeah, it was very very strong the way
It
it opened
definitely
up.
establishes that, like, kind of anything can happen when you're in the back rooms. Like, you
Yeah,
don't necessarily know what's going on moment to moment, and you're just kind of in this reactive state that can be really unsettling.
you're in such awe of what's surrounding it, but then when you go inside and you dig deeper into those rooms, you want to get the fuck out as fast as possible.
Hmm. Well, maybe not for our lead character,
Not for our
but
lead character. So, would you like to introduce us to our protagonist of the film, Clark, who's played by Chiwetel Ejiofor?
yeah. So we meet him. Do we meet him in the therapy office for the first time? I think, and yeah, he's going.
Yes, I believe
I
so.
think so. And so he is, yeah, with his therapist played by Renata Reinsve playing Mary, and yeah, we're getting some insight into him as a character. He has a disgruntled marital situation. He seems like kind of an angry, resentful guy, and this,
Alcoholic.
yes, has drinking problems, and is sort of a failed architect who is now working at this furniture store. And so we get these conversations about this moment when his wife kicked him out of the house, and just all of these things where he is kind of complaining about his life and the state of it and everything. And so we get this moment from Mary where she says something about, like, you have to you see a path of trauma, resentment, whatever it is, any of your issues, and you sort of feel like, oh, I know where this goes, this is familiar, and that's how we, like, fall into patterns psychologically and throughout our lives and everything. So yeah, just setting that up a little bit for where this is gonna go thematically. And then we get some moments of him in the store recording this very funny, like, local TV commercial in his furniture store where he's dressed as a pirate. But the other guy also mentions, like, are you a pirate? Are you a sultan? Based on what you're saying, like for Finn Bennett and I believe it's Lukita Maxwell work at the
Hmm.
store as his other employees. And so yeah, he's just trying to record this commercial, chair breaks, like, he's just this disgruntled guy who's not too happy with how his life is turning out. So that's where we meet him, that's where he's established. We see that there are electrical problems in the store, he's sleeping at the store since he's been kicked out, and he's drinking there, and all of these things going on where he is just not too thrilled with his life. So yeah, how did you feel about that? Did you think he was, like, a sympathetic enough character where you're a little bit like, God, this guy seems like a long day?
I kind of felt both ways about
Yeah.
him because, like, to a degree, I feel like you're supposed to be rooting for him, but you're also against him because the way he does bitch and moan about all of his problems, it's like, okay, buddy, let's relax. But then you see him in this situation, and it's like you could tell he is trying to get himself back to a proper place and everything. And it's unfortunate that he had this promising career ahead of him and he had this marriage, and then all of that was taken away from him. And now he's stuck working in this rundown furniture store, which was a very creepy environment of its own and everything. Like, I always think back to like when I was a kid and I was dragged to furniture stores with my parents, and like there I remember one time I was like 10 years old and I went to this place in the hometown that you and I grew up in, and we went like late at night. Like, it was late, it was towards like the closing time of the store, and I was so terrified. I remember that so well. Like, I was like, Father, can we get out of here now and just come back tomorrow in the morning when there's sun surrounding us and everything? And I thought that, again, the production design, like not just the backrooms, but I thought that the way that this store acted as a character of its
Yeah.
own was really impressive too. But regarding Clark and his character arc in this opening segment, I was really compelled by him. I was really interested to see where he was going to go. And I felt bad for him. But then also at the same time, I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, calm the fuck down. I love a complicated protagonist. I'm a sucker for those narratives and everything when they're done right. And I could talk later on about how the script doesn't fully flesh out the ideas, but regarding his character, I thought his arc was really beautifully written, and I think that his was the strongest element of this movie, obviously. And there's not many characters in this movie to begin with, but he is the character that we follow throughout a majority of the movie, and he's the person that we're supposed to be feeling for and rooting for and hoping that he figures himself out and gets him back to a proper place. But yeah, I really like the way that we're introduced to him. And I really loved that sequence of where we think he's at home watching TV, but then we get the wide shot of him in the store, and I'm like, oh, that's clever. That was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good moment. Yeah, you just get the sense from his conversation with his therapist Mary that it's just even from the describing the his wife kicking him out incident. It's like he says he came home late at midnight and had been drinking, and even though he said he was working, and you can just kind of see it's one of the that meme that's like, oh no, when you realize that like the friend telling you the drama is not the victim of the drama. Like, it's like it's you can just so clearly see how like he has a large responsibility for his issues in life and is choosing to outsource that blame to everybody else. So that's clear. And honestly, from that therapy scene, I was kind of like, can we just stay here? Like, I kind of like am really just enjoying these two actors volleying back and forth. And I really think that it's the writing is not the most sophisticated or anything or complex, but like just watching two really great actors have this sort of dialogue back and forth was a really great setup for me. I was happy that it took that moment to pause and set these people up a little bit more and not just dive directly into the horror and everything. So I appreciated that.
But now, like, after this introduction and everything is when the horror starts to come into play a
Yeah.
little bit, where Clark discovers the backrooms. Now, the building up to this, with the whole electrical problems that you had brought up, we see that this electrician finds this 3-colored breaker switch installed at a very weird angle, like at the bottom, that do not connect to the store. So Clark and the electrician are like, well, what is this connected to and everything? And of course, nobody knows. So then they're like, oh, they're probably just there for show. Like, they're probably just not even actual breakers and everything. So whatever. So then one night while Clark is trying to sleep and everything, he's failing to do so. He keeps experiencing all these electric issues and everything. So he decides to go into the basement. And when he's in this basement, he notices a very weird slit in the wall. So he walks over it and he has his hand leaned against the wall. And then he just like pushes through into the back rooms and everything. And we get this really harrowing segment of him just walking around and exploring. It's very eerie. And I like what you brought up in your initial thoughts of how this movie is slow, and I think it's purposely slow, because I think if this moved at a frenetic pace, what was trying to be conveyed wouldn't have landed entirely. I think that the slowness really increased the tension that was throughout this movie, which I really commend Kane Parsons and the editor Greg Negg, I think that's his name, like the work that they were doing together and everything. But this whole segment of Clark experiencing, like, he's so wowed by it and he's so entranced by it. And I feel like that's how we are as the audience, because we're just like, what is this place? Like, what is the deal with this place? But then as we dig a little deeper into it and we explore it even further, and then we see the underbelly of it and how, like, oh, this is not all it's cut out to be. It's very terrifying. It's a very harrowing sequence, but it's so well done. And again, I don't know how they were able to pull this off, like the set and everything. Like, I don't know what they were able to do. I was reading something about how when they shot this movie and everything, they built all these sets and everything. It was very easy for the actors and the crew members to get lost because, like, obviously, I mean, everything looks the exact same. So it's very easy to get lost in this world. Even though, like, obviously, when you're not in the movie, like, it's very easy to get swept up in that. But I really loved this sequence. Again, like, this is at the point still where I'm, like, very high on the movie. Like, the first half, when I say that the first half, like, genuinely wowed me, I truly mean that the first half, like, really, really, really worked with me and really sat well with me. And just following Clark exploring this room and everything, and then him running out and leaving. And I like the shot of when he comes back in to grab the one stool, and then he was going to sit on it. I thought he was going to grab the stool, sit down on it, and it was going to collapse on him, just like the chair earlier on in in the movie. But yeah, this whole segment of him discovering the Backrooms was really terrifying and really intense. It just super eerie. So, how did you feel about this particular sequence?
Yeah, that first discovery, going back to how he first sees it with like that light on the wall. That's a really cool shot. Like it just looks like a wall, but then there's like a light peeking through it, like a doorway almost, which is it just, establishes it really well. And yeah, he goes through and you definitely get the kind of sense that okay, we've established that this guy is, his life's in a bit of shambles and like you kind of get the idea that if things were going better for him, he'd be like, fuck this, I'm out. And he's at this point where he's just like this do you know the John Mulaney bit where he's like, you have days as an adult where you're like, this might as well
Oh,
happen. Like
yeah.
that's where I
Oh,
feel
yeah,
like
absolutely.
that's what I felt like he was thinking. He's like, why don't I just go through this like bizarre other world that just popped up at the basement of my store? Like, sure, I don't have anything else to do. And so he's going through it's just so like I said, it's sort of like meditative, like just the time it's taking to go through each room to just to kind of like take a look around and assess. It felt like maybe a little almost like video game-ish that way, where you're kind of just like taking like a taking stock of like what's in front of you, what are your like options for exit, or what's this chair doing over there. Like it has that sort of quality to it. And yeah, I think it's just like it's very, and again, it's just bizarre. It's you're feeling set up from that first found footage video. You're feeling like that something's down there, that like something can happen at any minute, but it's not overwhelming you with that fact. You're not like at absolutely every second like terrified something's gonna jump out at you. So yeah, it just leaves you feeling so unsettled. And I was like, again, going into this, I was like, okay, I knew this was, the basic sort of premise of the movie, but I was like, God, watching it, just letting it play out like this, it's so like compelling. Like I was just really like drawn into it and being like, obviously I would not want to be there. And the way that the rooms like double back and everything, he kind of like, there is an incident where there's some sort of creature or something, and he runs away from it through like this tiny door in the ceiling, and he comes back where he started. And like, oh my God, my sense of direction, I am so terrible at like normal streets on a grid. I can't even, I would get so deeply lost. So he manages to get back to where he started and everything. And I really like the touch of, there's a little bit of a fake out where he's like goes towards the wall and it like doesn't go back through, and you're like, oh, is he going to be trapped there? And then he just sort of like moves down the wall a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, he just had
Yeah.
the wrong. I like that moment that you weren't going to be like, oh, he's stuck there, he's got to figure out how to reopen the portal. It's like, I like that, kind of similar to Obsession, where it's like both these movies don't get bogged down in lore. It's just like, this is a fact, this thing exists in the back of this store. And when he shows it to other people, you're like, oh God, is it not going to be there and he's going to look crazy? And it's like, no, it's there. This like the back rooms exist and you can't really do anything about it. So all that is just really smart. That doesn't waste time with trying to like, prove that he's crazy or anything, or it's just like, yeah, no, this exists and we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
that's a really good approach.
yeah, and then we get him going to another therapy session and basically have this drawn out
Right.
map of the back rooms and everything. Like we see a maze and everything. I mean, that's how he describes it, and that's pretty much what
Mhm.
it's like. It's like a maze that just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going and never stopping. And of course, Mary's like, "I believe you." But like with any therapist, whenever someone tries to vent about something that they witness, I understand what you're saying, but I also don't know what you're saying. So of course, Mary is just like unsure about how like she feels about this whole thing that's being dumped on her, and she's very restrained during this whole like period where Clark is just enunciating everything, and he is just fed up with the fact that she doesn't believe him and everything, and he's like, I'm gonna show you that I'm right. I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna come back up and I'm gonna tell you that what I saw was real. So he recruits Kat and Bobby, the two characters that we meet earlier and everything, to help him film the backrooms as proof of his wacko claims and everything. And this is where the movie goes back into the found footage territory for about, I would say, 10 minutes. I would say
Something
10 to
like that.
15
Yeah.
minutes. Like
Hmm.
a really good chunk of this period is in found footage. And again, I was still very invested in the movie at this point. And less one takes and everything, less long takes here and everything, because we do get some cuts and
Hmm.
everything, but you could tell that when they would cut and everything. But again, similar to the opening, very effective stuff, like very quiet, very slow build up to it. You didn't know what was going to happen. You at any second, like something bad could have happened. And you know, they go in to the back rooms, and Clark suggests to Bobby, we're going to tie you to a rope and then you're going to go down this very steep corridor. And that whole sequence was terrifying because we have the camera in Bobby's hands and everything. So we're seeing everything from his perspective, like him going down. And then, like, we get this shot where the rope, like, untangles him and then he, like,
Hmm.
flies down. And it's very terrifying to watch. And then once he gets down to this very bottomless room, we see something like crazy down there, something attack him, and I like the build up to this. And he tries to climb back up and everything, and then the camera is put down like onto a table and everything as Clark and Kat are trying to help Bobby up. Then he gets dragged down, and because the rope was connected to something else, the rope like pulls back and then knocks Bobby and Kat down as well. And the camera is also down there too. So it's just like this very terrifying sequence where we're told stuff from this found footage perspective, and it builds up to this very bloody, gory sequence that I thought was so impressively well done. And I'm just like, oh God, like just please make it stop. Like I was getting really unsettled. And again, I don't really get unsettled very easily. So even that happening for me just says a lot. And maybe everyone has different reactions to horror and everything, but like this really made me uncomfortable. Like I was terrified. I actually really got terrified for these characters and everything. So you know, Bobby is killed, and then Clark and Kat are like separated and everything, and Clark is running through various rooms and everything, and then he sees this weird like infinite pool like room and everything, and comes across like several entities that chase him to a dead end and everything, and then he gets stuck in this room where he hears Kat calling out his name. He puts the camera down to look for her, and then something unknown picks up the camera. Then Kat's like, Clark, look behind you, and then everything cuts to black. But I want to talk briefly about some of the stuff that he sees during this sequence. um I don't think I'll ever look at Christmas trees the same way again after this particular sequence, because what the fuck? Genuinely, what the fuck? um,
There's been
that
a lot of creepy shit with Christmas iconography, but yeah, this is a really good one.
like this was oh god, this was oh, god, and then the music underneath it, I'm just like, oh god, this is too much for me. How did you feel about this entire segment of like basically going back to the found footage route and everything, and now we see more characters in this situation as opposed to the opening where it was just one person?
Yeah, this totally worked for me, and like I said, I was hoping that a significant amount of the movie wasn't found footage because it's not really my favorite thing to watch, but I think it was used so effectively here. Yeah, I love the moment when he's propelling down the sort of corridor thing, and you're like we're in the camera's POV and he's like switching back and forth between like the one he's propelling down to, and then back up at the other two characters, and so you like you get like turned around. You almost don't know which way you're looking sometimes, and then you see the shadow of people there, and you're like, oh, are they our characters, or is there something below where he's going? Like all of that, like disorientation is really cool. And then yeah, he gets down to that room at the bottom there, and there's a moment when he finds the t-shirt that he had been wearing earlier in the movie.
Yes.
And that right away made me think of reminded me the most of Us, the Jordan Peele movie. Which, you know, I guess spoiler alert for that, but that sort of like parallel world where everything is just like slightly fucked up. And but actually my like main complaint with Us was that I kind of wish they either like explained less or explained more. Like there's this whole kind of thing of like, you know, there's this whole society down there and how would that work and that kind of thing. So I kind of like Backrooms' approach of not really explaining this that much. Like it just is this sort of, I don't know, supernatural maybe, or whatever thing that exists. And it feels a little more just like mystical. It's just like there's no really clear explanation. So I was like, okay, I'm intrigued by that and want to see how that plays out a little bit more. And then yeah, the you know, we see chaos happening with him down there, and then as the other two get it was really cool how they just get pulled by the rope, like the thing that they had tied to him kind of drags them down there too. And you know, there's no choice in the matter or anything. They all end up down there together. And then yeah, I think that just the pool of blood from where he was killed, and then the running around the sort of chase sequence there's you know, something else in there with them. And then I thought it was a really cool, you know, button on the sequence with we're watching Clark trying to communicate to Cat, is the other one? Yeah, to Cat. And yeah, just the something else picking up the camera. I was like, that's a really cool moment. So yeah, this was like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe the highlight of the movie for me. This was like a really cool demonstration of like how crazy these rooms get and what can happen within them, and the just chaos and disorienting nature of being in there.
Yeah. And then this is kind of the last shred of greatness for the movie for me personally, because after this, the movie kind of lost me, but we'll build up to that and everything. And like the entire first half of this movie is really, this is Clark's show through and through. But then the second half of this movie shifts perspectives, and now Mary is essentially our lead from here until the very end of the movie. So would you like to set up how this all comes together for Mary and everything?
Yeah, so I think from that sequence we cut to Mary having a dream, and we get a bit of insight into her childhood and her with her mother in this room that's all like kind of boarded up, and Mary's as a child is trying to like look to the outside world, and her mother yells at her, and it's clearly some sort of, you know, maybe mental health issues, maybe something supernatural going on, who knows. We don't really get to dig into that too much.
I think
but
they emphasized that her mother had schizophrenia. I think that was mentioned in the film and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously she had this difficult childhood with her mother. And yeah, some sort of issues about going outside, and she has this concrete handprint that is like representative of her home there with her. And so yeah, we get her waking up. She is, you know, a pretty, from what we see, a pretty well-adjusted, you know, successful therapist. There's like a commercial for a sort of self-help guide thing that she's published that's on TV. So we kind of get a sense of who she is. And so I think at that moment she gets a message on her answering machine from Clark saying something about, you know, I'm going there, I'm not coming back, that sort of thing. And so that piques her interest, and she goes to visit the furniture store. And she is, and like I said, I was glad they just sort of dispensed with all of the, like, you know, rigmarole about how you get in there. Like she finds the back rooms, it's marked off from where Clark marked it, and she walks right in and is like, oh, okay, this thing exists. And yeah, from there, I don't know, there's aren't, you know, she makes her way through as well. There are specific details and moments, but you know, there's that moment when her childhood room sort of like, we see that the one that she had the dream of, and we see it sort of like go through different levels of it, and it sort of like degradates and transforms into like this lesser, like you know, more innocuous version. Just all of these things. Yeah, I don't know, how did you, or before that, I guess she finds Clark, she meets up with him, and then they have that interaction. So yeah, I mean, everything from like Mary getting into the back rooms and finding Clark. Like, how did you feel about that?
I was still pretty invested in it because I'm like, oh god, we have to go through this whole thing again, the slow build up, and now we have another person discovering the room, and just like Renata Reinsva is just one of those performers where I'm like, I just don't want to see anything bad happen to her ever. And she's also like, as someone who's met Renata Reinsva, she's like the sweetest, kindest person in the entire world, and I adore her so much. And I'm just like, please don't go in there. Come back into the real world and just stay there. Fuck Clark. Like, don't even bother going to find Clark. Clark was mean to you. You do your own thing. Stay in the real world and keep yourself safe. But now we're on this journey following her, and then also it helps too that now we've gotten this sense of her backstory and everything, and understanding where she came from with her past, and how Clark isn't the only person that's dealing with some sort of trauma and everything. Like, she has her own trauma, and it's very tragic and very unfortunate, very like eerie and kind of reminiscent a little bit of how these are both very flawed people and everything. I like the fact that it isn't just one person that has their problems. She also has her fair share of problems and everything. But the fact that she was willing to go down there to find her patient, because she was like, "Oh my god, if he dies, that's on me because I didn't believe him." Like, now I'm in a position to where I have to go and save him. But also it's like, you're just his therapist. Why are you going to find him? Like, it's not your job to go find him and everything. So I guess that's a therapist mentality to just be like, well, I gotta go find my patient and everything. But
I mean,
this
probably
whole
just
segment,
curiosity too, I would
yeah,
imagine. Like,
yeah, it's just it blows my mind. But from when she enters the back rooms to when she finds Clark, still very invested in it. The eeriness is there, the unsettling nature is there, and everything. And then when we get to Clark, I was like, oh, are they just gonna run out, or is he just gonna like, oh, thank God someone found me and now I can leave? No, that's not what happens at all.
yeah, no, that's the moment where yeah, he's definitely been changed. He definitely has different demeanor and
Changed
everything.
not
And
for
then
good.
no, he has not been changed for the better. Um, and yeah, I think he kind of puts her in a headlock and causes her to pass out. And you're like, okay, this is obviously this is not this is not going well for either of them. And she comes to, and he's tied her up in this sort of kitchen situation, and there are these other sort of figures that we saw earlier are around, and they are like deformed. They have like these different the design on them was really cool as well. They have like multiple eyes, multiple parts of their faces, and that was interesting too. But so we I don't know, this is where I don't quite know how to feel about the movie, because we do get an explanation of sorts, but it
This
doesn't
is the conventional like
really, yeah.
exposition dump in a horror movie that always comes in the third act.
It is, but it also like it still doesn't necessarily explain all that much to me,
Right.
which like that's not even a complaint. Like I'm just like
Yeah, and you
I
don't have
don't
to
necessarily
explain everything,
know.
but it's like you have to give us a reason to care, even though you're not giving us all the answers that we're asking for.
Yeah, I'm like, even if, I don't need to literally logistically know how everything exists there and everything like that, but I can't quite graft onto what any of it means thematically, because I don't know. I think, and maybe it's just something that is kind of broad and open to interpretation. And we get a little bit more into how it affects Clark specifically and psychologically and everything. So we can talk about that. But yeah, I just feel like I don't know if I was like satisfied by this. I'm glad that they didn't dig into everything. But we do get a scene here going back and forth where I'm kind of like, I don't necessarily know how to latch on to this. But
Yeah, this is really where the movie lost me, unfortunately. And like you, I'm someone who's willing to be like open minded about, a film that gives us a lot of questions and we're not necessarily spoon fed all the answers and everything. But as this scene was unfolding, I'm like, what's the point of all this? Like, is this supposed to really compel me or anything? And, throughout this whole sequence, while Clark is delivering this powerhouse monologue, I'm just like, Chiwetel is chewing it up here, and he is literally like giving it his all, and he's doing a wonderful job. And then all these little,
literally chewing
yeah,
on the other people there.
literally chewing. And then we see
He
Cat's
ate.
head in the fridge and everything, which was crazy. That broke my heart as someone who I love the show Shrinking, which Keita Maxwell is on and everything. So
Oh,
just seeing her in her head massacred in the fridge. I'm like, no, I don't like this at all. Thank God Jason Segel isn't there to witness this, because he would be pissed off if he just lost his daughter to that. Oh my God. Anyway, this entire segment was like, I was like, I just don't know if it like fully worked for me. There's just so much going on here in this final segment that I'm just like, this is what I don't like in horror movies. Like when everything is explained to us of why everything is like happening and everything. Like I don't want to know why everything is happening. I want to kind of interpret it on my own. And like again, the movie doesn't necessarily give you all the answers and everything, but like this just felt to me like an exposition dump. Even though, like you said, Veronica, we still don't have a grasp of what it is that's going on and everything. But it really just took me out of the movie because I was really, really, really enjoying it until this point. Like this segment really just boggled the movie down. And I still like the movie overall, but this like really plummeted it for me.
Yeah, so he like during the exchange, like Clark talks about the other people existing down there, and he says they just simply exist like furniture. And so yeah, he lobs off a piece of the man sitting there and eats some of it. He offers it to Mary, and so at that obviously she's horrified by that and everything, and then he wants to do the role play that they did earlier in their therapy session again,
Which
and
that was a very good sequence. Like in that entire sequence, that was my favorite thing in that particular moment, that
yeah,
role playing exchange. Because again, the two of them are just like firing on all cylinders with their acting.
yeah.
Like they are acting capital A acting in that moment.
Yeah, and the role play also involves for him scalping the woman who is in the room and putting her hair on top of Mary in order to look more like his wife, I assume. Which that's also I'm like a little, again, I'm kind of could use, I don't know, maybe more explanation or less. I kind of am like, is that woman his wife or his like I don't know. I'm a little confused if like Clark has sort of domain here in the back rooms and could kind of control the other people. And again, I don't necessarily need that answered, but I don't really know how to draw any meaning out of it if we don't know what anything means. So,
Right.
they have that role play scene where they're trying to recreate and work through that night when his wife kicked him out again. And Mary tries to play along as best she can, but she just eventually just sort of dresses him down into like, you have all these problems in your life, but like the real issue is just that you whine about it. You think that nothing is your fault. You think that it's not you bringing me in here and doing this, like it's your brain, it's not you. But she had that line that you're like, you are your fucking brain, you dipshit. Like it's just you are like and again, it's hard to, I think definitely something can be pulled here from what it's trying to say about mental health and about responsibility and relationships and stuff like that. And I don't know, I guess it can, reasonable people could disagree about what it means and everything, but I guess it's a balance sort of there of like, yes, people have struggles and mental health issues, but like ultimately you just have to take responsibility for your actions. You are what your brain does, and that sort of evolves into Clark, I believe, as the creature shows up that we can get into a little more, but I think that leads to him saying like, yeah, I don't think I want to change. I like it here. I think we get the sense that he's this sort of person that kind of wants to wallow in the problems and in this fucked up version of the world. He almost feels more comfortable here than trying to exist in the real world. And it's something where he is he wants to drag Mary down with him? Does he want other people to share in his misery? But he likes this sort of world where everything is just kind of bad and off, and that feels okay for him in the way that I think some people in life have problems that they don't want to get better from. They don't want to work on themselves and improve. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of his arc as I saw it for the film.
No, I completely agree. He just felt like he felt free in the back rooms, and he didn't want to go back out there and accept the fact that he's a fuck up. Like it's his fault that everything crashed around him, his marriage, his career, his health. Like he doesn't want to willingly blame himself for it and recognize that he has his problems, and that ultimately it wasn't just his wife, it was more so him, because like Mary was saying, he just whines and complains and he doesn't do anything to move forward. And yeah, that whole element was interesting, but I just didn't feel like it was entirely earned. Like I didn't really feel like it was fleshed out as strongly as they thought it was going to be. And then speaking of flesh being taken out to a degree, so we bring up these like imperfect copies of humans throughout the backrooms. The one that was in the wheelchair next to Mary, that shit was terrifying. That was very
The lamp.
unsettling. Yeah, that was very unsettling with the light and everything. I like the one part where he's like, "All right, turn off the lights." Oh, she always does this. And then as soon as he turns off the light, the mini guy like turns on a light by him, and I'm like, "Ugh, this is too much." So then we get this ginormous creature coming in who looks like Clark in a pirate costume, a humanoid deformed copy. And that's the thing about all these people is that they all look very deformed. And I don't know what they were able to do with that. I don't know if it was like practical or CGI. Like I would love to know what went into making those, but that was all very well done. Like
Yeah.
the technical achievement here on this film is really impressive. We already talked about the production design, the sound, the visuals. I think that was all very, very well done. But so anyway, this huge Clark pirate deformed creature comes in and everything, and human Clark tries to calm him down and everything and be like, Mary is a friend, like she's one of us and everything, she's a good person and everything. So then he raises him up, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go, something's gonna happen. He's gonna be like ripped apart or something, or eaten. And I was right. He bit into his neck, and just like Shu tell Edgy for it's like, oh, the real Clark is now back out there. Like now he's not the possessed, if you want to call it possessed Clark. Like it's like, oh well, Clark's done, and now the rest of the movie we follow Mary going on her own chase and everything. She flees throughout the store, and this entire segment, even though I really wasn't as into this portion of the movie as I was the first portion, we see more backrooms, and I'm like, oh my god, there's more. There's that one section where after she sprains her ankle, where
Yeah.
like it's like floors upon floors upon floors. It reminds me a lot of like a very big hotel, and just like very eerie and unsettling. And
The
I was like,
scale is like so huge. Like,
I don't know how they were able to pull that off. I don't know
yeah.
what they were able to do. I just, oh my god, that whole, I'm just sitting there, like my jaw was on the floor and everything. But again, Mary is now on her chase and everything, and we see her go upstairs, and we think that she escaped the backrooms. No, she's in a literal replica of the furniture store showroom, and now she has to fight off the pirate and everything. And it was cool seeing Renata Reinsve in badass mode, because she's never really done that in any film. Like, listen, we all love her in the other movies that she's done, but there was never a moment in Cinema of Value where I'm like, wow, you're a badass. Like, I never got that vibe from that movie at all. But here, seeing her fight off this
She should
pirate
have
and
kicked
everything.
Stellan Skarsgård's ass in that.
Figuratively kicking his ass in that movie.
Emotionally.
But this segment was cool, but again, I just felt that after the whole exposition dump, I was just like so out of it. But granted, this set piece where she's fighting off the pirate was interesting. I was like, okay, like I like seeing this little period and everything. How did you feel about this whole set piece?
Yeah, I definitely felt like, okay, this is just, we're gonna have the final chase now and see how it plays out. And the design of the pirate was like, it was a choice. Like I think it was
I
interesting.
think it was
Definitely,
intentional though to
yeah,
look like that.
yeah. It definitely, to me, it looked very practical and pretty unique. So like that was cool. And the chase there, it just has so many. I think I was noticing it just has so many like deep seated fears. Like she runs onto, again, it feels very like nightmarish. Like running onto the stairs with like nothing underneath it and like crawling through these tight spaces. Like it just felt like a lot of like phobias that people have, and like just trying to, get through this like obstacle course of horror. So, I think that it was a decent enough action sequence. It's sort of where it resolves with her getting like gassed in this replica of the furniture store, and we have all of these people come out in like these hazmat suits, and then from there, like Jay Duplass is here, and he's sort of
Mark
running.
Duplass.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Duplass. Yeah, wrong one.
It's easy to get them mixed up.
Yeah, I do that all the time. And so he's here, and he's running this sort of project, or we don't know if they created the backrooms, if they're observing it, and I don't know. From there, I didn't necessarily understand, or none of that necessarily worked for me. Where I was like, I can't really parse what this is supposed to mean, or if it's just sort of a way to resolve the story. And yeah, we get him having a conversation with Mary and her just trying to like get me out of here, and he kind of seems powerless to do that, or at least that's what he's telling her. And yeah, this just felt a little bit like just some vague, maybe government conspiracy, maybe, who knows, but just feels like this sort of vague bow on it that didn't necessarily satisfy me in any way. What did you think about how that all resolved?
Yeah, we learned that this company tried to develop MRI machines, and then their mission changed once they discovered the back rooms and everything. And their whole objective was to map out the whole place. And yeah, like I brought up of how the dump that we got when it was Clark and Mary just sitting in that kitchen and everything talking was like where the film started to fizzle for me. I don't like the way that this film wrapped up at all. I don't really like this ending because, like you said, it didn't feel earned. Like it was a bow that was trying to clearly set someone up, but then it's like, oh well, now the movie's over.
Yeah, it
So
felt a
it
little
just
random and
abruptly
pat.
ended, and I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that didn't feel earned even in the slightest. So I was like, oh, now we have another mystery on top of it when the movie only has literally 5 minutes left. It's like I just don't really understand what they were trying to convey through those final minutes and everything. But I will say that last shot of the disfigured Mary, that was terrifying. That was a really unsettling final shot.
Yeah, and you, I don't know. I think it is for in a sense, going for that like unsettled. Yeah, we don't really know what happened. We don't really know what any of this means because yeah, you're like, okay, how much time passed then? Like, has she, how long has she been down there? Is what's happening there like actually happening in her brain, and she's just sitting there disfigured? Like, we don't know. We don't really get any answers for it, and that's fine. But it to me doesn't really feel all that satisfying when you had several sequences and you could have attached more meaning or something thematic to it that could have like really elevated the story, and it kind of just feels like a really crazy concept that's well realized and just plays out, and we kind of just have these characters as our avatars to explore it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it also doesn't make this a movie of the year or anything for me. Like it does kind of remain in that like, okay, this is a bit of a curio that is interesting to check out, but I'm not necessarily like super invested in emotionally or anything.
Which is disappointing for me because like the movie started off on such a strong note. Like it was very promising when it began. And a lot of the movie was really good to me, but then when we got to this, final act and everything, it really lost me. It like and listen, again, I don't need everything explained to me. I don't need to be have my hand held and everything while everything is going on, but I wanted some urgency to it and nothing felt earned and it just ended abruptly and I didn't like that at all. And I don't mind an abrupt ending if you give me a reason to feel like the impact by that, but I just didn't care at all. It just added on to this mystery and maybe that was intentional, but it just didn't work at all for me. And it makes me wonder too, like so Kane Parsons only directed this. I had thought that he wrote the movie too, but he only directed it. And I just think that the screenplay, especially in this last act, didn't do any favors. Like it really just tanked the movie a bit for me, and that's disappointing. And listen, maybe I just need to like read up on some analysis and everything. Maybe I'll have a better grasp of like why this happened and everything. But right now, in this moment, I didn't like the way it wrapped up, and that's really disappointing because again, the movie for me started off on such a strong note.
And I said that I liked the movie, didn't get bogged down in lore or anything. And from what I've heard and seen about Backrooms as a series, though, I think that there's like a ton of lore out there. Like maybe if you are more familiar with it, maybe this means a little more to you, or maybe it's something that you can grasp onto a little bit more. But yeah, as a standalone movie, I do just think that the ending felt kind of rushed. It felt kind of just this is where we're gonna leave it here, and it's again, I think that it functions more as something that is just an interesting experiment rather than like a super involving movie. But
And that
that
and
those
and
have to
that
exist too.
Yeah, and that's my thing too. Like, and seeing this with my friends who are obviously very much in love with the back rooms lore and everything. It's like I understand that this movie clearly catered a lot to the people who are familiar with the material, but like my thing is when you make a movie like this, you can't just make a movie that's catered towards that audience. You have to find a way to make it feel very universal to
Yeah.
where people who aren't familiar with that lore can take away some appreciation. And there are people I know who never watched the shorts prior to this and they ended up really liking the movie, but I haven't come across anybody I know that has seen the shorts and didn't like the movie. So I'm like, is this movie really catered for anybody, or is this movie specifically for the people who are in love with the Backrooms series that was made prior to this? Because, like, you have to ride a fine line. You can't just make something that's clearly for a particular audience. Like, I try to separate the two, and I watched the entirety of the YouTube series years ago, and it's not as fresh in my mind as it may be for other people, but I went into the movie trying to separate the two and judge it as its own thing. And for me, as someone who did like the YouTube series, I didn't find myself as enamored by the movie as I was with the series. And it comes to show that sometimes certain things work better as a short than as a feature. And the runtime was a good runtime for it. I'm glad that there was a rumor when the movie before it came out that apparently it was like 2.5 hours. And I'm like, oh, that's way too long for a movie
That would have
like
been way
that.
too much, yeah.
But I think an hour 45, hour 50 was a good runtime for this. So I'm glad that they trimmed the fat and everything because there was this weird rumor and they were like, no, no, no. The movie's an hour 40. And I'm like, perfect. That's a good runtime for this. So yeah, I don't know. I just kept thinking about that the entire time as I was watching the movie. And since I had seen it, I'm just like, I wish that the movie clearly at times wasn't just trying to pamper for the fans of the material.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. And I don't necessarily a movie should stand alone for sure, but if anybody is into this and that encourages them to get further into the series, or if they plan to make any more of it, and it's obviously a world that could, you could flesh it out with any number of characters and everything. So, I don't mind a little bit of inside baseball going on. I just don't think that I don't even know if it was going for necessarily a denouement that makes sense if you know the series. I think it kind of like I don't know if it fizzles out no matter what. So I don't know that further information would have helped it necessarily. But
Right.
I don't know if it's just going for that sort of like open ended. Yeah, this is where this story ends, and that's it. So
Yeah.
it's. I think I'm just trying to parse out whether that was the intention and that I'm just not necessarily on the wavelength of, or if it didn't really know what it was doing. So
Right.
it's reasonable minds can disagree there, but that's
Yeah.
that's how it came across to me.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you
Yeah.
completely. And there are just a few things to touch upon. We already went through the plot and I kind of want to save the production design for last cuz I have to echo again, not to sound like a broken record. That's the star of the movie, but let's talk about the actual stars of the movie. Let's talk about Chiwetel and Renata. So, how did you feel about their performances?
Yeah, like I said, I think that they elevate the material. I think this would be a much weaker movie without them. Bringing yeah, you like you said, I don't Chiwetel. He was fantastic in The Life of Chuck recently. But even that is sort of an ensemble movie. So yeah,
I honestly forgot that he was in that. He was very good in that. Really good in
yeah,
that.
he's always great. Yeah, I wish he was in even bigger projects or around a little more. Because I just love seeing him. And then yeah, we talked about Renata is so already a rising star who's already really arrived and she's just having a fantastic year. So yeah, I think that their performances mostly were the highlights of the movie. Finn Bennett and Lakina Maxwell were both really good as the employees. Finn Bennett was particularly funny as like I don't know a little bit of a himbo, and he brought a fun dynamic to it. But yeah, no, I think that it was a great performance that can take a movie that an average script and an okay sort of dialogue and everything, and they just really elevated it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the two performances from these actors were really, really great. Chiwetel in particular really blew me away. I thought he
Yeah.
was outstanding in this, and I've been waiting for a long time for him to like have a great lead-in role because honestly, other than 12 Years a Slave, I can't really think of a lead-in Chiwetel role that I really loved and everything because I feel like he's so pushed aside as like a supporting player, and that's not a bad thing. Like he's always given it his all, but like I've been waiting for him to headline a film again. So when he was given the opportunity to headline a straight up horror film, and he did a wonderful job with it, I was very impressed. And Renata, the thing that I really like about the sequences with them together even if I don't necessarily love the writing, what I love about their act is that he's very explosive and has this rage, and she's very subdued and has that restrainedness to her, which she has in a lot of her performances, like even since Worst Person in the World. And I think it meshes really, really strongly because if they both
Yeah.
were explosive or if they both were restrained, I don't think it would have worked very well. And like you said, if you got any other actors to play these roles, it probably wouldn't have stuck the landing the way it did here. But you have these two powerhouse performances, and again, to be in the position like Kane Parsons, you're 19, 20 years old, and you're directing two of the best actors working today. I'm like, that's just so inspiring to me. Like the fact that they were able to
Yeah.
that's insane to me. It's
And
also
it's cool.
just
It's cool
funny.
that they took the chance on this too.
Absolutely. And I just want to also bring up, and we haven't talked about this, there's been all these reports going around lately that someone ghost directed the movie, one of the producers, and it's like, why are we jumping down the bandwagon of even thinking that? Like, that's the stupidest thing. Like, and I like that Mark Duplass got on Instagram and said, guys, there was no ghost directing involved. Kane directed every single sequence here. It was his movie, top to bottom. Nobody else came in. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that's been a stupid thing that I've seen over the last few days about this movie.
Yeah, that just goes like we used to. We just talked about this. We recorded a Spielberg draft. We talked a little bit about like how when he started his career, he was in his 20s and changing the world and everything of filmmaking. And like I think we've just gotten so out of practice with like now most of our auteurs are older people who have been around for decades at this point, and like we don't give chances to younger filmmakers and creatives in all different fields like nearly as much as it used to. You have to like prove yourself so much before a studio will take a chance on you, and like younger people are very much capable of this. They have been doing it for decades, and I feel like we've just kind of been out of practice with recognizing that. And so yeah, this is a really between Kane Parsons and Curry Barker both. I think that it's a super exciting time that both of their films are doing so well and are very well received, and all of that is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the production design.
Great.
Um, like,
Scary.
genuinely outstanding. I was reading that they built 30,000 square feet of sets. And like I said, people reportedly were getting lost in this set. And yeah, I mean, understandably so. It's really spectacular work, truly. And I hope it gets nominated. I really do
Be
because
cool.
like this is the kind of production design that you do. Yes, it's just the same look and everything, but like each room has a different feel to it and vibe to it, and you have to give credit to the production designer for doing something like that. So I hope that work gets recognized. Like we talked about the sound work and tuner and how that needs to be recognized. I think the same could be said for the production design work in Backrooms.
Definitely. Yeah. Any other final thoughts before we rate?
Um, I think it's crazy. Like when the movie ended, I was like, "Oh my god, so many fucking people produced this." Sean Levy, James Wan, Osgood Perkins. I was like, "Oh my god, like all these people are produced." Like I had no idea any of them were even involved in this movie, quite frankly. And I'm just like, "Wow, like that's pretty cool that all these people produced the movie and everything." So yeah, I just want to point that out. I never thought that I would see Sean Levy, director of the acclaimed Deadpool and Wolverine, produce an A24 horror film. Never thought in my life that would happen.
Yeah, and it goes to show just like Renata and Chiwetel, like it's cool that these people are putting their rubber stamp on this untested creator, and definitely shows a trend of people coming out of YouTube and online creation, and if you can like build enough of a following there, then you can hopefully get your shot and actually be set up for success, but with the right production and budget and all of that stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
it's cool that he got this opportunity.
So, what would you rate Backrooms?
I think I'm going with a 3.5. Because, like I said, mixed positive. I think there are a lot of really cool things in here. It's an incredible concept. It's really well articulated. Just the ending and some of the characterization and some of that stuff leaves to some to be desired. But it manages to pull off a really hard thing of being unique and creating like it's just own sort of vibe and world. So that's hard to do. So I can respect it for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3.5 as well with this. I almost gave it a 3, but I'm just like like that first half of the movie is so good to me that I'm just like I can't put it down to a 3. It's just that good of a first half and everything. So Yeah, Backrooms was surely very interesting, and even though it doesn't entirely work for me, I'm not gonna be able to stop thinking about it for a while. Like I'm
Mhm.
still thinking about it, even though I'm just like, what was it that I watched? I don't think I understand it.
Yeah, if you're like intrigued by it at all, definitely go check it out because it's its own, its own journey.
Absolutely. And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Brian Sutfield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vero Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around and tune in every Monday and Thursday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.